Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you. Is there any echo? Oh, nope.
And see me, I think.
Here we
All
are.
right, there we go. Yep, you have headphones on, so there isn't any echo. Sounds good.
Oh,
All right, let me just ask my chat. How's her volume, chat? Should I turn her up, turn her down?
Oh
Is
boy,
it
let me
good?
get some water.
All right, it's good. All right. Sounds good. Okay, how you doing today, Lauren? Hello, can you hear me?
oh, I can hear you now. It's when I have my mic plugged in that I can't hear you because I'm an absolute boomer with technology, so I apologize. Is my mic okay now? I'm just using the headphones.
Yep, you sound great. No echo, and it sounds pretty good.
Excellent.
All right.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll just leave the Blue Yeti over there. I'm sorry for being late. I had to find my lighter. Gotta have the candle on. Little known fact, white women are exclusively powered by scented candles, so would have been a disaster without it.
I understand that. My girlfriend also has a scented candle, though she doesn't use it much. But I also know, and I guess this sort of supports the more conservative view of women. In my experience, women also have no body heat. Like
Zero.
they always want the house turned up as hot as possible, and yeah, that's
I
been.
heard, yeah, I heard your poor girlfriend's freezing her butt off for you.
She is. We got the AC turned nice and low for this conversation because I sweat like crazy when I sit in a leather chair. So nice and cold.
No worries. Well, it's good to be here. I appreciate you having me on the stream. And I do appreciate you admitting in your review of my book that you were a bit prejudiced when first picking it up and you actually like it. You're a fan of the ABCs of morality.
Yeah, overall, I don't think there's anything, like, at least on a surface level, that's worth taking too much issue with. Though I was just curious, and I wanted to see if you would elaborate
Hey,
on
50 seconds left in the level
some
4.
of
We
the
can do
meaning
it.
behind a few
I
of
know
the
we can do it.
definitions that you gave.
Come on.
Yeah, for sure. So
And he wrote her
overall,
book.
good
He read her
book,
book.
but there are a few problems you have. That's where we're at.
To be fair, the problems aren't really with the book itself. I guess if I were to give my concern in a more succinct manner, I would say
Occurred is occurred.
knowing you as
Drew,
a
thanks for the
conservative
Prime
figure,
Gaming and
you are
Bones. Thanks for the tier
certainly
1 to
conservative and
Heemed.
pretty well known for that.
Appreciate that.
I
Baba
feel
Jun.
as though if a well-known leftist figure wrote a book for kids,
Missile, thank you so much for the tier
and
1.
the main idea behind it was to teach kids like values of some kind, right? Most likely left-wing values. I'm curious, would this not perhaps make you a little bit suspicious?
Occurred is occurred.
It would depend what the book actually said. And that's what kind of surprised me at first is, and why I quite frankly accepted this debate, is I couldn't believe you would challenge me to debate a book you had never read before. It was just, there's kind of this degree of internet brain rot people get where they just assume this person is on righty Twitter or this person is on
Wait, so they're
left-wing Twitter,
debating her
therefore
book?
anything they produce
A book
must
he
be
didn't read?
completely evil,
And then he had to
irredeemable,
read it,
I
and now
know
he's
I'm
like,
gonna be
fuck,
able
there's
to
like
debate them
nothing
on
for
it
me to
because I'm
bring
gonna
up now.
disagree with everything
So now
they
he
say,
adds
and
up,
that's just not how
oh
the world
no.
works. And I have no doubt that there could be a left-wing YouTuber or creator that could write a children's book in which I would agree with everything in it. I would never, straight up assume every single bit of it is going to be awful. Now, I have seen left-wing kids' books that I've read, and I read it and I disagree with the points, and I think, I don't really think that's quite for children, but that's after I've actually opened it up and read it. And I don't think the author is as relevant to children's
Oh
books
god.
as people like
Xan
to
has really
think.
put him in
Are
a
we gonna
terrible
get rid
position
of,
here. Oh god, he
say,
really put himself up
the
shit
Jungle
creek.
Book,
No wonder
because a
she
lot of
agreed to
people
this.
consider Kipling to be racist, or say Horton Hears a Who, which has become an explicitly kind of anti-racist message, despite the fact that now people consider Dr. Seuss to be bigoted. So I just, even if you don't like me and you don't think I'm a good person or whatever your opinion of me is, which I probably disagree with, I don't think the author is as relevant as you may try to portray. But I also think you've kind of worked yourself into a corner here where you've told people you're going to debate me on the book, but you don't actually disagree with the book that much. So I genuinely feel there's going to be a lot of reaches here, but correct me if I'm wrong.
That's actually what I'm exactly scared of. Oh God, Lauren knows exactly what's up.
No,
No,
the
Sam.
author of a book doesn't really matter, especially if it's a children's book where the beliefs of that author aren't necessarily apparent on surface level. Are you familiar with a phrase, the death of the author?
Yes.
Yeah, so
In what context are you using it with this? Yeah.
I guess the idea is that if you have a piece of media and there's no apparent bias or message put in by the author that indicates the author's beliefs, yet you know the author believes these things, and this is a piece of media or art, a book, a movie, anything like that, the idea is that you try to separate the art itself from the artist. Now, if I were to do that with this book, I don't really have all that big an issue with it, like really. But what I'm more concerned about is what you mean when you say certain things in the book. Because I know that like you're probably not going to put in everything that you agree with in the book, or like it's not meant to be super overtly political. So I'm more interested in discussing your motivations behind the definitions for the words that you put in there, and that's what we could discuss.
Sure, let's do that. And where would you like to start? What are the words that you have the most issue with, let's say?
Okay, yeah, I don't want to go over every single one, obviously, because I don't take issue with most of them. But I guess we can start on E. Okay, do you mind if I read it off? Or,
Here we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Oh God.
E is for equal opportunity. Everyone is equal when they're judged on the same scale, praised if they're successful, and accepting if they fail. Everyone, both boy and girl, of every race and class, should live by the same standards that they should strive to surpass. Don't try for special treatment, for your friends or for your enemies. If you lose a game that's fair, you can learn from the memories of what you might have done wrong and what you can do right, which is always better than a rigged and unfair fight. So, pretty good.
45 more seconds. We can beat level 5. Come on.
Thank you. I heard you
61%,
said
almost there.
bars. I appreciate that. Big compliment.
Yeah, we got some fire bars in here. So, I'm curious because obviously there's a lot of discussion about
this is not going to be good.
Rigged and fair fights in the political scene.
I'm worried for Zan.
I'm curious if this wasn't perhaps a slight reference to the idea of like systemic racism, for example. What was your thought process behind making that?
B is for
particular rhyme?
bootstraps.
Actually, the ABCs of equality, which was the kind of left-wing edition of this book, that I wrote this to be a more neutral version
Hey,
of,
Missile, thanks for
put
2
just
tier 1s.
equality
Missed it
for
by 6,
theirs,
but I appreciate
and
it, everybody. I do.
defined it in more of the left-leaning.
Ooh, Zach missed it by just an inch.
Equality is
Thanks for
when
tier
you
1.
kind of even the scales and everything, which of course
I
I don't really agree with the idea that, for example, you should boost certain people's grades to get into universities dependent on their race. I disagree with that. I think we should be judged on the same scale as people. I think that that creates true equality. I shouldn't be given special treatment if I'm a woman. A man shouldn't be given special treatment if he's a man. I'm pretty sure that's what we call patriarchy, if it's only men being hired because they're men. So I do think this, once again, is something that can lean both left and right. No one, if they're white, they shouldn't be given special treatment. If they're black,
okay, so now Zan, now he has an opportunity to bring this off the book to the idea of like
of course not. I'm curious
affirmative action.
though, because obviously
an opportunity
a lot of
here.
very left-leaning people would bring up something like white privilege. What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, he's moving away from the book.
I think that it is used as something that's far too broad and across the board.
Ooh, Lauren should have been like, well, I didn't really talk about white privilege in the book. Can we go back to the book? That's what she should do, but she's not.
People whose lives are not
Good,
privileged,
good
and yet they
Zan.
have,
Good move.
white skin. I'm not for the idea of white privilege. I think that's pretty evident. I think it's relevant to consider historically relevant systems that exist. So,
Slippery
for example,
Zan.
if you're in a European country, yes, it is more likely that people who are white are going to be the royalty. It is more likely that they are going to be established and wealthy because they've been there longer.
Royalty?
They are the ones who
I think I've ever
established
heard
a
that
country.
before.
We can talk about that, but there's also peasants. There are also people who are oppressed. There are also, even in the forming of America, I won't compare it directly to slavery, but it's not like the Irish or Italians were thought of particularly highly. So I think that we shouldn't use these terms that really work people into boxes and deny their personal life experience and history. My personal history, my grandmother was a war orphan who was sent to orphanages and homes in Australia and had to escape because she was horribly abused, and got on a boat at 16 to Canada, where she grew up homeless and dumpster diving. You know, I think it would be horrible to say she had a privileged life just because of her skin color. So I really reject the notion that we can just assume everyone who has white skin has some sort of privilege. But I do think it's relevant to say in some areas, people who have white skin may be more likely to have privilege or wealth.
Do you mind if I elaborate on the definition of white privilege, at least as I understand it, and as most of the academic community seems to?
I understand there are different definitions of white privilege, but I'm talking about it in the way that it is popularly used within pop culture, within discussion, within even my own classrooms when I was growing up. But feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, so when at least I talk about white privilege, or most academics talk about white privilege,
just letting her talk for a while. Gotta go.
The remnants or even still existing systems that seem to specifically target the vast majority of people of color, typically, but not white people. So, for example, here's a good example, right? You can be a poor white person and have it really, really rough, right?
Yeah.
And you could have a rich black person who, economically speaking, has it very, very well.
Yeah.
There are still certain things that white person has, very small privileges that white person has.
Small privileges is debatable.
Person. Is it life-changing? Is it revolutionary for their overall well-being? Probably not, but it is still worth talking about, because when we get down to it, these are the types of biases and the types of privileges we probably don't want to exist in society, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so
okay.
Yeah, typically I'm referring to things like injustice in the racial justice system.
Why do you call them? Why do you have to downplay how they are to appeal to Lauren? Right? You could have just said that there are discrepancies.
The criminal justice system.
You'd have to point out direct examples. I think people would argue that it could go either way in some cases. But you'd have to, historically, most likely we'd agree. Modern times, I don't know. We could also talk about, once again, the racism in college admissions. We could talk about the racism in affirmative action hiring and how people who are more...
Oh, there we go. Now we're actually moving off of this to off the book. Now Xan is in territory. He can actually work.
And you would say that that's an equaling out of things.
Good.
But I disagree with you there.
I actually would disagree, because I think, from my understanding, I believe those that benefit most from affirmative action are actually white women, like more well-off white women, from my understanding.
I don't disagree with that, and I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think that affirmative action on its own is exactly the best way to go about amending these particular problems. But when I talk about...
Okay, and I agree with you. That's what this is saying. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing to boost people just because of their skin color or their race, because it actually takes away from the achievements of very successful minorities, very successful women that have worked hard for these positions, and everyone looks at them and questions, did you get this because you were an affirmative action hire, or did you get this because you're an incredibly talented individual? So I don't think it's been positive for anyone in any way. And even you're saying yourself, actually this has just benefited certain classes and groups, and it's not necessarily been positive at correcting the overall problem.
Yeah, so when I talk about privilege or systems that are racist, I'm not necessarily referring to affirmative action. I'm referring to things that are a lot easier to pinpoint, and there's a lot more data behind, and that are way more impactful in most people's lives than just whether or not this person gets hired for this job because they're white or black, or this person gets accepted to this university because they're white or black. I'm referring more to the overrepresentation of incarceration in prisons when it comes to black people and white people, the overall socioeconomic position of black people in this country, and just generally non-white people as well. I'm talking about issues like this. Obviously, the leftover ramifications...
Can I just quickly tell you something?
Sure.
I'm not addressing any of that in this book. It's a children's book.
Oh, see, I knew she would pivot back to the book once she had an opportunity.
Mention of, the incarceration rates. I'm not talking about that at all. This is literally just saying we should treat people equally, regardless of their gender or skin color, and judge them on the same scale. That's it. There's no hidden message here talking about all of these extensive why did he want to debate her before reading the book? I mean, it was one of the more bold ways to try to get her on, but I think you're using this point that you don't really disagree with to go off on tons of other topics that you maybe want to discuss with me, and we can save for later when we're done the book. But this has nothing to do with all of these topics you brought up.
True, it's true.
Well, I apologize if it seems that way, but my main point is that you can't completely separate the beliefs of the author from the art. So when I read this, my interpretation was, okay, so
this is
you're talking about equality and how people should strive to surpass, and you know, winning a rigged fight isn't really something that's worth any merit. And so I couldn't help but think of, like, because I watched a lot of your content.
She's
back in the day, when you talk about like how
doing fucking stone cold stunners. No,
the problems with like the racial inequalities in the criminal justice system. It just brought me back to that.
It had nothing to do with that. And okay, you guys can look it up. There's this book called Postmodern Pooh, and it's a book which tries to argue in jest that Winnie the Pooh is actually just rife with post-colonial theory, and it's actually books about satanic ritual abuse using Piglet and other things, and it's quite a funny book for adults to read, and it mocks the idea of like over reading into this and how you could literally interpret these kids' books to be the craziest ideas you can come up with. And I think you're starting to just go into that territory a little bit, where you are taking this book and somehow making a poem about, hey, we should treat all genders and races equally, about the disparity in incarceration rates in America. Like you just, I can tell you right now, that wasn't even in the peripheral of my mind when I was writing this. And I do think this brings it back to the point I was making, which is, I feel you've worked yourself into a corner where you don't actually disagree with this book. You don't disagree with me on the content. So you are trying to deliberately create disagreement.
He's so fucked.
Okay. Yeah, if you didn't have any like political, if there were no references or bias politically to this, and it was just like, hey, we should treat everyone equally, then I have no issue with that. Okay, do you want to move on to the, I guess it's the next two.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and
come on. I hope the next one is like communists need to burn. You better have something good here.
One together, because I feel like they reference. I'm actually, this is going to be a genuine.
Okay,
question
this one actually might have a lot more ammunition in it. Okay.
On this has changed.
Good. Keep going.
So I don't need to read off the whole thing, but you say at the end of the one for femininity, if you want to be a tomboy, that's okay. Some girls aren't feminine. And then at the end of the masculinity one, you say if you're a boy and you don't want to be masculine, that's all right. So I'm curious if, because I was actually really surprised to read that.
What is, it isn't masculine, ask.
Have you sort of like become more supportive of like trans and gender nonconforming people in the last, at least since last time I heard you talk about that particular topic?
Zan, that's not exactly.
With trans people, they're not meant to be.
Oh no, not again.
Well, you specifically said that not all women have to be feminine, not all men have to be masculine, and I assume, I mean, gender nonconforming means you don't conform to traditional gender roles. That's what that's referencing, right?
You know, there are guys who are completely straight that act in feminine ways, or there are guys that are completely cis, so to speak, that aren't entirely masculine, and there are women that are completely cis and not transgender individuals that
dude, this is a firing squad.
Like tomboys. I was a tomboy when growing up. Being a are you under the impression that being a tomboy makes you transgender?
No, absolutely not. But this is obviously
encompassed.
So are you only referring to cisgendered people that are like straight and just happen to not really fall in?
I am not bringing up the subject of transgenderism in a children's book. I'm completely against the idea of
she used the term transgenderism.
Children who are barely even
transgender ideology. Oh gosh.
What is being a female and a male? I don't believe in bringing transgender ideology onto children at all.
Transgender ideology.
Why are you okay with putting cisgender ideology into that? I mean, in the very same passage, you talk about how football and bravery and whatnot is masculine, mothers and princesses are feminine.
That's what masculine means. Teaching them
yes. This is what I said originally. Ask her what feminine and masculine mean.
Transgender ideology being taught to them, but this is, I guess you could say, the cisgender ideology.
Get out of that! You have an avenue.
Subject that, when put on kids, can lead them to make all sorts of life-changing decisions, which they are not old enough to make yet. Ones which can change their biology.
Ask her what is masculine and what is feminine.
That's not a confusion, and quite frankly, in my opinion, I have a lot of love for people who are struggling with gender identity issues. I do. I have friends that are transgender. I have friends that have detransitioned. And it is not something that's fun. It is not fun.
I've got friends who are of those type.
Being in the wrong body, however you want to portray it. It's not some joyous thing that you just say, yeah, choose that. No, in a lot of ways, we should teach people to be comfortable in their own body and to embrace and love it. And if later on it turns out they are having issues with gender identity, that is not something you try to promote. It is an issue. It is a struggle to be born in the wrong body or have, body dysmorphia. That's not like, I don't understand this idea that we should teach people to be happy with choosing to be transgender as if it's some choice.
God, see, but this is pivoting off the book. So she's making this point. She's putting out a point. Then Zan will say, this is why you're wrong, this is why you're wrong, this is why you're wrong. But then she can just pivot and not respond to it by going back to the book. This is the biggest tactic ever. She's just sliding through it. And Zan can't do shit. He can't do shit.
But there is a debate as to whether this is a mental illness. There is a debate.
No, because he's going to respond to these points, and then afterwards she can just say, well, none of this is in the book anyway, so can we get back to the book? Oh, no.
Of life. And female and male, these two genders are literally how humanity has existed from the dawn of time. You can't reproduce without them both. And the idea of femininity and masculinity are two concepts which have existed for a very long time throughout history. And the only reason I'm bringing them up is, quite frankly, because society has demonized them in a lot of ways. And I'm trying to tell kids, actually, it's okay to be feminine and masculine.
All right. Okay, we got a lot to go over there because you brought a lot of things up, and I do want to acknowledge all of it. So, firstly, I understand that the issue of trans people is very, very politicized, right? There's a huge political debate about it. My opinions on this issue...
I'm not bringing it up in a kid.
Okay, sure. My opinions about transgender people are entirely backed by science.
I'm muted. I'm sorry. I'm just so angry.
Tons of
I'm just
research
screaming
into
at the
this.
screen.
If you want any of my sources or anything like that, I can provide them to you very happily in an instant, okay? So first of all, there are no kids that are being brainwashed into being transgender and engaging in some total body-changing, biologically irreversible thing that's happening to them.
That's false. That's false. I'm watching it happen right now within my own community in Canada. We've got family friends that are dealing with this. We've got family friends that are dealing with this in Canada with their daughter who is 14 years old, who is currently trying to transition and go on hormones. And they told her, we love you, we support you, but we just want to wait until you're at an age, 18, the age you're allowed to drink, vote, all of these huge decisions, get tattoos. Just wait till then, because this is something that can affect your fertility. This is something that can affect your bone
Did they even bring her to a doctor to get the doctor's professional opinion? Since parents are not experts on trans issues or the medical procedures, this is what he should bring up. Talk about doctors. Talk about puberty blockers and the success rates. This is what he needs to talk about.
Said no. You will take your child away if you do not allow.
This is when he needs to hit back, and he needs to write these down, because she made 20 points. They're gonna devote on just this, and he's not gonna be able to respond to all of it. He needs to write these points down, because he's gonna forget about the other things she said, and then boom, all those points unresponded.
Are not allowing him to oppose it.
I have a question. If you have a child who has manic depression, and the doctors recommend that they get on antidepressants, and the parents say, no, I don't want any of this for my kid, at least not until they're old enough. Do you think it would be valid for the government to say, hey, if you're not going to give your kid what they need to deal with their mental health, then we're going to have to take them away from you because they're a danger.
Wait, no, you're pivoting into no, you could have just made that point without the government taking the kids away.
Cancer, all these other things.
Well, it's absolutely comparable because we can see with all data.
There's a reason. There's medicine to deal with it.
As depressed or detransition.
You don't choose to identify.
Well, no one chooses to have gender dysphoria.
No one chooses to. Yes, no one chooses to be gender dysphoria. Yes.
That's the point.
Very few
choose to have gender. No, that's not true.
Very few.
I don't think people choose to have depression or gender dysphoria, but no one is detransitioning from having cancer. No one is detransitioning from having depression. Simply the fact that
And very few
transitioning,
people are
we have to be
transitioning,
very
period.
careful and very serious about
There is
who
many
we
more
allow to
people
take these
not getting
and
treatment
children who, quite
that we could be
frankly,
giving them access
have
treatment than people who
very-
are actually detransitioning.
They do not have
The
established
issue
ideas
is
about who
much
they
more
are and what
broadly
they
about the
want
people
in
not
life.
getting
Yes,
access to these resources.
I think about tattoos I wanted even when I was 17, 18.
Oh
and
my
I look
God.
back at it and I'm like, oh my gosh. Or even I think of identities I had as a young child, thinking that, we're a dog. My sister and I used to dress up as boys and go to the skate park and have fun pretending to be boys then.
Hold on for a second, okay? Hold on. I feel like we're moving off from just let me finish what I was about to say, okay? So in the overwhelming amount of data, it has been shown that if a trans person is allowed to transition and they have gender dysphoria and they have the support of at least one family member, their likelihood of attempting or committing suicide drops significantly. It is very similar to depression. You also said nobody chooses to detransition from cancer. Tons of people have regret whenever they go through treatment for cancer. Getting chemotherapy and radiation.
Holy shit, I didn't think about that. Zan's powering up. Yes, this is actually a great point. I didn't even think of this.
I'd say there's probably a higher amount of people who regret, per capita, who regret getting treatment for cancer because of how terrible the side effects are than there are people who willingly get like hormones to transition or go through any other surgeries they would go through and then end up regretting that.
So clearly we need to take these processes very seriously.
It is taken seriously.
That means nothing.
The thing is,
that means nothing.
There has not been a wide range of research done on transitioning.
There has been.
100% there has been. There's tons of studies on this. Yes. This is a big issue that's gotten a lot of attention, just like marijuana. This is the same excuse Joe Biden uses to not legalize weed. We need to do more studies. We have enough studies.
Being brought to the surface.
You're saying we have research over 5-10 years that shows the impacts of getting.
Problem is that after if he shows 10 years, you know what he's going to say?
Yeah.
We need 20 years. Then it's going to be
the reason
30
why you
years.
don't think it
Goalposts
has
going to be moved.
Being brought forward.
Yeah, I'll elaborate in a moment, but I want to say this first. The reason why you don't think it has is because this issue has only become extremely politicized very recently. But nobody is advocating, well, nobody with any actual credibility or any power is actually advocating for giving kids hormones. Now, you probably mix these up. A lot of people do. What's been advocated for and what has been tested and verified to be safe are hormone blockers.
Yes, puberty
blockers. The point of hormone blockers is if you have a kid who has gender dysphoria,
a high as hell sex rate,
they might be
success
trans,
rate, and
you have to visit a designated
healthcare
professionals, usually their pediatrician,
doctors,
to a therapist, and that therapist will figure out whether or not it's very likely they have gender dysphoria.
Dylan, I love you, but he can't hear half the thing he said. I'm sorry, but I'm excited.
It becomes a lot harder later in life for you to transition if you've gone through, let's say you're a trans woman. You are now in your 20s, and you are now finally able to get hormones and start transitioning because you are fully, let go of the reins, right? But you've gone through a male puberty. It is a lot harder for you now to go through that process to achieve the body that you want to achieve because you went through the wrong puberty. Now, puberty blockers are safe to give to kids that are, coming out of prepubescence into puberty. And it's been found that there are no negative side effects. These same hormone blockers have been used on kids that are not transgender when they have thyroid issues or other issues that require them, and they've been found to be overwhelmingly safe. I believe it was found that they are more safe than ear infection medication, which we give kids all the time when they go swimming in the pool and they get pee in their ear when they're swimming around.
I want to concede something right now.
All right.
You're actually right. There has been a decent amount of research done.
Comeback kid. He is the comeback kid. There you go.
I just had someone send it to me, actually. The most thorough follow-up of sex reassigned people. Research.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Mick. He's Rocky. I'm just trying to come on, Rocky, you can do it.
Documents their lifelong mental unrest. 10 to 15 years after surgical reassignment, the suicide rate of those who had undergone sex reassignment surgery rose to 20 times that of comparable peers.
Is this the
Vosh has the resources on this.
NCBI,
hopefully you talk to Vosh about this or he knows the same thing Vosh does.
NHI.gov?
He knows the exact website. Does he know the exact website?
Not that I can see here.
Oh, okay.
Can you link it to me?
Ooh. For a second, I thought he literally knew the fucking tag for the website. That would have been... Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're gonna send it to me on Discord?
I'm sending it to you on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Remember, I'm a boomer. I don't know how Discord works.
Yep, I've seen this one. So I've actually seen this study plenty, and it's been debunked overwhelmingly. So for starters,
Okay, so it doesn't agree with you, so it's been debunked.
no. You know what? Do you know who was actually? Do you know who was actually polled by this? Do you know who was actually polled in this study?
Who was polled by this?
This study polled parents, not the actual children, and those polls were taken online based on, and they like there was no like going to people's homes visiting parents. It was completely online. It was an online survey. It wasn't an actual well conducted study. It was terrible data collection.
I'm reading the methods right now. It contains discharge diagnosis, up to 7 contributory diagnostics. Wait, 1 minute. Sorry.
Nobody knows what those words mean. You got to be more specific.
National registers.
There we go. Come on. Wait. Let me play some music in the background.
That particular study has become a laughingstock among much of the scientific community.
Ooh.
I've seen it a million times.
Okay, well, here it is.
I'm not going to take your word at it, because you were just telling me that you have a bunch of studies that show people's suicide rates drop. You can go pick those up while I'm reading how this was done.
Absolutely.
Well.
Good one.
He do the study before she even got here.
Being an online study, if anything, it's suggesting that they were interviewing people, and
it was a survey that was taken online. And it was also extremely biased. I didn't want to bring this one up because I don't know how much you would agree. But the survey, I believe, was hosted on a very well-known anti-trans website as well. And there was no strong verification to determine whether or not the people taking the surveys were real. And it was also meant to survey parents, not the actual trans people.
Yeah.
I just sent you one of many
daughter
studies
hated
that,
it. Oh my goodness! And then you go to them and
here's
say,
a good one
"Actually,
here.
I really enjoyed my transition. I'm very happier now."
Most notably, strong parental support decreases the likelihood of a suicide attempt within in the past year from 57% to just 4%. That is a massive decrease in the likelihood of suicide for an individual.
It's almost like it's not being trans, but it's the ostracization, just like
who has
homosexual youth.
The
suicide rates have gone down as homosexuality has been more accepted and more supported by parents.
Support from a family member or a friend.
Now, is this studied adults or children?
This study... No, it's the right one. Hold on. Someone messaged me. This study specifically... Here, I can actually check right here. Analysis...
This is the thing. I am open to hearing this kind of stuff, but the research I have personally seen and the research that... I have seen over the years as I've gone over this topic, it's not something I'm particularly into right now and researching right now, has been highly negative towards the surgeries. If that's changed, if you have proof that it's different, I am willing to consider that and look at that. But this is certainly not the topic I came on here to talk about, and you've been dragging me down rabbit holes of subjects that are not even contained in this book every single time you bring up a poem.
I apologize. Listen, I'm very eager. I'm very excited. I'm having a good time. I'm sorry if I get a little bit overzealous, but I felt like perhaps there was a reference there to trans people because you talked about essentially gender non-conforming people.
Not even a little bit.
Okay, cool.
It's not gender. It's just they're. If you are a guy who isn't necessarily super masculine, maybe you like your craft beers and art instead. I wouldn't consider him gender non-conforming.
Was they right?
That seems a little bit weird.
I knew it.
That's what it refers to.
I knew it.
The idea is that you
I knew it. Back to the book. Immediately when she did not have the information To
I'm curious, have you
combat
ever heard of a
it, she
femboy?
pivots back to the book because that's what the conversation was based in. She knew it. She signaled it every single time.
Yeah,
I
like,
called it. I
femboys
called
can
it
be,
100%.
can
Dylan
be
Burns
cisgender, but doesn't necessarily.
it.
It doesn't mean they're gay or not. Well, it doesn't mean they're trans or gay or anything like that. They can be totally straight, but they just like to be. They like to wear the.
Intrepid, I
the
know
thigh-high
he brought her on
socks
for the
and,
book,
you know,
which is why I disagree
the
with
little,
Xander doing it in this style,
shorts
because at
and
any
everything,
point she
and
could
they
just say, this
dress
wasn't in
very
the book, I
feminine.
don't care. Which is what she's doing, which is the smart thing to do
And
from
I
a
don't-
strategic
I don't
perspective.
care. I don't care. The point of this poem was to say, if you want to be feminine, you can be feminine. If you want to be masculine, you can be masculine. There are a lot of aspects of today's culture that, would you agree, kind of reject and demonize traditional femininity and masculinity?
Perhaps, yeah, depending on the space you're in. I've met plenty of people like that.
Yeah, so it's like, for example, this is a bit of a random one, but the other day I was on YouTube. I was on the YouTubes, and I was watching this deep dive analysis of High School Musical's Sharpay, and how she's actually the victim in the story, but it was a time, and I remember this when I was growing up, the idea of being traditionally feminine was really demonized. Like, you wanted to be a tomboy, you wanted to be the girl that dressed a little more plain and was the girl next door, because all of the girls in movies that were super feminine were demonized. There was the fact that she wore pink skirts, the fact that she had the little dog with her, she had the long blonde hair, she just loved everything sparkly, and constantly in the show they would mock that and make her the villain for having these super, just quite frankly, feminine tropes about her. And you know, you can even see this with the bimbo movement on TikTok, where you have girls saying, hey, if I want to walk around and be like Legally Blonde, if I want to be a bit of a bimbo, why
A bit
are
of
you
a
guys
bimbo?
rejecting and saying that can't be my aesthetic? Why are
A
you
bit of a
people saying that
bimbo?
that's wrong
Did Lauren
or
Sothern
bad?
just say,
So
can't I
think
just be a
that,
bit of a
I was just
bimbo?
kind of making a point to
This is
touch
the pro
on,
bimbo movement?
no, if you want to fall into this, that's okay. That's it. It's not a highly politicized point saying you have to
Return
be
to
feminine as a woman.
reject
It's saying there's been some pushback
reject
from
modern
culture
life.
against
Return to
traditional
bimbo.
femininity and kids. It's okay to be these things. That's
Return
fine.
to bimbo.
And once again, I don't think you disagree with that. So you tried to make this a debate about transgenderism, a topic which I will admit I am not particularly well versed
Yeah, see,
in.
this is what she's gonna do. She's gonna. This is why basing it off of this book and not even having read the book beforehand. This is the problem. At any point, she could pull out the cord like, "Hey, I came on here to talk about the book. This I didn't come here to talk about transgender issues." Go back to it.
You've got a very
Knew
neat
it.
trick of making
Knew it.
every single poem in here and every single topic in here about a topic you want to debate me on that I'm not talking about.
But don't you think that if I wrote a book,
This is
that was very
100%.
similar to
This is
and I wrote,
100%.
It's okay.
What Xan
for
is
you
doing
to
too.
identify
She's right
however
about
you
this is
like.
what
You don't
Xan
have
is
to be
doing.
masculine,
She
you don't have
want
to
he
be
wanted a
feminine.
reason to
Knowing
debate
my
Lauren
takes
Sothern.
on,
The book was the way.
on these issues. Would you not think that perhaps I was alluding?
How else
to
is he going to
being
get her?
okay
No
to be
other way.
transgender,
Which is
even if you're a
the
kid?
problem.
If
So
that's all
he
you were
has
saying,
accepted the fact that he is bringing
That
her
it's
on
okay
through
to
this
be-
through a
to be
fraud
trans as a
strategy
kid?
that's going to be used against him.
If you were right,
So he
it's
has to
okay
do
be trans
do so
kid, that would be a
overwhelmingly
highly
good
politicized point,
that
the same way
it doesn't matter.
That if I were writing, you have to be feminine. We know these are politicized arguments. There's almost no one in the right-wing sphere or conservative sphere of politics that are saying kids should be transgender and should be taught transgender politics. And there's almost no one in the left-wing, more progressive realm of politics that is saying all men have to be masculine and all men have to be feminine. So I'm not saying either politicized side of things.
Okay. Do you want to move on to G? This one's a bit faster. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this. So G is for groupthink. It's easy to accept what those in crowds believe. But if they're wrong, it means more people who will grieve. History has told us that folks are often led to throwing out their reason and trusting mobs instead. Groupthink is a nasty and quite well-hidden trap. When you first step in it, you might not feel it snap. It's not that it's wrong to trust in other people, but think for yourself so you don't follow them to evil. So what did you mean by that?
Nothing about this is wrong though.
No,
So
I don't necessarily. I'm just curious
That's
what
nothing.
your thoughts are on it.
There's nothing wrong about that statement
if
though.
a group of people tell you to don't jump off a bridge, don't just
There's
jump off a
there's
bridge
literally
'cause
nothing
groups
wrong
telling you
with
to do
that.
If there's a bunch of people on a political bandwagon, whether it be political or social, don't just do something because lots of people are doing it. Think for yourself. Maybe they're all doing it for good reasons, but sometimes crowds do things for bad reasons.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Would it be presumptuous of me to, or perhaps overbearing of me to ask if you have any examples of like a political bandwagon that you've seen people jump on?
See, this is the thing. He's going to use it to try to pivot off of the book, and then she's going to be like, pivot back to the book, and this is what's going to happen.
You know, I'd even suggest the MAGA movement. Don't join a MAGA movement just because it looks exciting.
The MAGA movement? You mean MAGA? I never heard somebody call it the Mega movement. Wait, the Mega Man movement? I'd be on for that.
But you really believe deep down.
Gonna be pivot back. Says pivoting off the book. They're gonna pivot back to the book. 100%.
Understand the cause behind it. Maybe at the end of the day,
she's gonna just pivot back to it.
Maybe at the end of the day, you think it is for a good reason, but don't just do it because all your friends are going there, or because it seems like everyone's doing it on Twitter and Instagram, and celebrities have told you it's good.
Okay, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I feel like a lot of people, especially nowadays, tend to perhaps stop thinking as much and maybe join into a group that they feel comfortable in, and sort of they're looking for some kind of belonging in a group, and that's what pushes them into wherever they end up going, whether it be left or right. There are a lot of people like that, so I do.
You know, I had friends that were posting the black square thing, and I just, because I saw it, I knew they weren't particularly involved in politics, and I knew they likely didn't know much about it, and I just messaged them and be like, hey, so what's the black square for? And they could not give me. They were like, oh, I support this Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What does it stand for? And they just could not give me a succinct answer. You know, they didn't bring up police violence. They just said, oh, it means you're not a racist. It means, and I'm like, no, there's so much more to these. To these movements and this symbolism.
Go off her and kick her out as a power move? No, that looks terrible. Like, No Comment Chick did that to me, and it looks terrible.
Square, and also, I'm going to my local community, and I'm going to start talking about how we can bring in police reform, how we can bring in, I'm going to a Stop the Violence rally against gang crime to try to make this a more peaceful city. I'm actually doing something that affects change, but I see so many people just posting. It's like when people put the flag filter on their Facebook, and it's really irritating when people don't know what they're supporting and there's no real action behind it. And once again, I'd like to think you'd agree with that.
No, I actually don't necessarily disagree with that. I think something that I find interesting is I feel like perhaps there's a difference between like people on Twitter adding like the little thing to their name because they just want to lend some support, or at the very least virtue signal support, and someone joining like a movement and participating in that movement because they want to feel like they belong, or because their friends are doing it, because they see a lot of people doing it. And I guess at the end of the day, I'm a consequentialist. I prefer when people have the right reasons to do what they're doing, but if it results in good outcomes, it's typically not something I'm going to get as upset about or try to drum up a fuss about unless I'm seeing something bad happen because of it. I encourage people to think for themselves, but if people don't think for themselves and they engage in a movement that's overall causing good to happen in the world, I don't really see it as like a huge problem. But don't get me wrong, I think encouraging, self-reliance and thinking about what you're doing for the right reasons is important.
I see what you mean. I've become, in the last few years, largely anti-movement and cause in general. That's going to sound weird initially saying it, but I've found over the years, like even in kind of right-wing circles, people would get into these movements and when they'd try to justify their behavior, the things they were fighting for, the arguments they were having online, they'd say, this is for the movement. This is for the cause. And I'd ask them what the cause was, and they'd be like, well, the cause is progressivism, or the cause is Trump. And it seemed that the cause or the movement had become the cause. It was kind of a self-creating, there was no real people behind it, right? To me, if the cause doesn't actually come down to affecting and helping real people, and you're just doing it, I'm doing this for Black Lives Matter. So you're acting for the cause. You're not actually doing it for someone's life. I'm doing this for the MAGA movement. There has to be real people, real community, real family that you are fighting for change. Whether it be, I have someone in my community that is deeply affected by gang crime, and so I've joined some sort of movement to fight against gang crime because my community and people I care about are impacted. Whereas I think a lot of people join movements and causes not because they are connected to their family and community, but rather the opposite. They are disconnected from their family and community, and they have this much deeper desire for just a narcissistic purpose in life. They need something to motivate them, and they need something to drive them and to justify them being
Thing
in
is, she
politics.
gets to basically go on and on. Then he'll say something, and she'll just say, that's not part of the book, back to the book. Just going to pivot right back to the book. He set himself up for possible failure
which
here.
I worry about, and I think is unhealthy.
What do you think would be the biggest difference between you and I and your average
See, this is not the
person who
book.
goes to a Black Lives Matter march or puts the little the flag or the block in their
But I mean,
Twitter name?
it's a
What
good
would you,
discussion, but
just off the top of
she
your head,
always
guess
has
would be
that
the biggest
card in her
difference
back
between you and
pocket.
me
She's
and
going to use it.
I'd have to know them on an individual level. I'd have to know their motivations for doing that.
Well,
if there's someone who's doing it just because they saw a lot of other people do it, I would say the difference is I have really delved into the subjects that I care about to the point of, flying over to Europe to go investigate the migrant crisis from the other side with the traffickers and seeing it firsthand. Also, and I will say, when I was initially involved in politics, I think I had a bit of this problem where it was just for the cause and I hadn't built a lot of community and real things that I cared about, which I've changed now. And part of the reason I'm in politics is because I really care about my family. I care about my community and I care about their future. And that's where most of my life is focused. And I worry about two groups of people. One group where they don't actually have anything real outside of this political world. And the reason they are involved in causes is just for the sake of feeling they have some purpose. And they enjoy the drama online. They enjoy the fights. It makes them feel justified in attacking other people, and the people who are just doing it blindly because they're scared of being socially rejected for not supporting these movements.
I don't think anyone's going to get socially rejected for saying nothing about it unless they're actively standing against it.
Because it happened to Chris Pratt. He said he didn't want to go to a Biden rally, and they tried to cancel him online.
Yeah, he didn't say nothing about it. He said
canceled for doing nothing.
Yeah, he said he didn't want to go there. Also, Chris Pratt had been canceled for some certainly more valid things before that. However,
No, but you just said people aren't being canceled for not doing anything. When I have friends that are Instagram influencers, totally non-political, that said they got hundreds of messages from people saying, how dare you haven't posted a black square, you haven't posted anything about the rallies in the States, how dare you? It's the idea that no one is getting canceled for just standing back and saying nothing is just untrue. It's untrue.
Maybe it's because I'm like a political creator, and when I think about getting canceled, I think of much more virulent, hardcore things and getting a few mean messages. When I get canceled for anything, it is way worse than like what those people probably went through. And I'm a comparatively much smaller figure.
And the motto of Black Lives Matter is literally, in some cases, silence is violence. So either you support us or you are a violent individual. You are not allowed to not agree with us. Or you are a violent individual.
Silence and violence
is about when we don't act, more people get killed.
If you are not willing to step up, when the only option is support this movement or don't, when that is the only option at the head of it, when an election comes around or whatever, that if you are willing to do nothing, then you are essentially allowing the status quo to continue. And the status quo is bad.
Right. So my point is, people will get in trouble and will be attacked for not participating in these political movements.
That's not referring to just making your screen, like posting the little black screen on your Instagram. I didn't get in trouble for not doing that. I don't think I posted like the little...
That's because you talk about this in all other realms, right?
Actually, no, I get like tons of shit from people that are like very progressive. I get canceled by the left constantly, and I did not get a single... a hateful message whenever I didn't post like a black screen on my Instagram or Twitter. Not a single message.
Okay, well, I know people who did. And ultimately, this really is for groupthink bit. I know you just said you don't really mind that much if people, as long as they're doing good things, even if they don't understand why they're doing good things, it doesn't matter that much. The problem is, when people don't think about why they're doing good things, they can easily be turned to bad things. And if people's understanding of the politics they're supporting is fickle and very thin, that makes long-term success of whatever your political ideology is extremely hard. And it also makes them easy to just turn to the next group, whatever it may be, whenever that's popular. So I really think you should care a lot more about people who are just doing good things without thinking about it, that those are the people that are ultimately usually utilized by dictators and tyrants.
True. If you look at my most recent YouTube videos, a significant amount of them are me going after people also on the left who do that same kind of thing. I criticize this plenty. People looking for a group and they join into, say, like leftism, like what I am, a leftist, and they do it because they want community, right? And I criticize that plenty. But I think, because you brought up a few anecdotes of people that didn't, like, they put the little black block in their thing, or they had the flag, or they said BLM, but when you asked them, they didn't know what the issues were. I think one of the biggest differences between us and them that you have to remember is that you and I are media-trained public figures that make our livings off of advocating for the issues that we care about.
Media-trained public figures. Is he media-trained?
Joes. They
Zan is
have a following on Twitter, but they aren't these political figures or political activists that dedicate their lives to learning about and advocating for these issues.
Correct, which is why it is such a problem.
This is really irresponsible what she's doing. Well, yeah, there's a risk. There's always a risk when having these conversations. Thankfully, she's already much bigger than him, so it's not a huge risk. Be an advocate for every but then he chose like a platform, like basing it off the book is a risk for him.
The average person has to speak up and has to be an advocate for all of these different issues that they could never have the time to properly investigate. And that is a lot of pressure. And this is something that is put on us from a very, very young age. You have kids that are doing climate marches that have no idea what any of the data, any of the information on this is about, and they're just doing it because they've been told that it's their job to save the world. No, it's their job to be learning, basic life skills in school, and they're being used as political pawns in so many cases. And this is ultimately the problem I'm pointing out in my book, is all of these people that are either doing it because they want to look good or are legitimately being used as pawns by political manipulators.
Okay.
When we don't have the time to understand every topic fully, quite frankly. Some people can be advocates for topics that they understand very deeply and not be political advocates, of course, but we're being asked a lot of as humans these days. Too much.
I think that political disaffection is one of the biggest problems that we could possibly have in our world. I think being politically aware of what's going on and having a side that you support, ideally the side that makes the world better, is extremely important. I don't care what age you are. You should have a fair understanding of what's going on in the world and understand how to make
I hate to pause this, but Danabo in chat, my somebody hosting with Hippy Dippy just said, reply to my DM, you big gay. Danabo has been able to go off like that for too long.
Better and probably have a desire to make the world better. Obviously, with climate change, that's an issue that concerns everybody. So having kids engaged in those marches, they're learning about climate change in school. This is an important issue. You learn about how the climate works in school. This isn't like even comparable to an issue like the trans thing, right? This is a distinct thing you would learn in elementary school. You learn about climate and climate change.
Well,
this is something that you should care about.
I disagree with you. I think the problem isn't that not enough people want to change the world. It's that not enough people want to change their communities. Everyone wants to look good by saying they're going to change the world. Everyone wants to look good by holding a sign and saying, end violence, but that doesn't actually do anything. Going in and helping your communities, building up your communities, volunteering, that kind of stuff changes things, but it doesn't look good. You can't make it, you can't hashtag it and get tons and tons of likes and retweets, quite frankly. So everyone is trying to change the world with not actually doing anything, but no one actually wants to focus on their community and real things because that's not popular.
Yeah, sure. So the reason why you can't think of a lot of examples of people doing community efforts to make their community better is because those things don't get a lot of traction. But I
don't get a lot of attention either.
A lot on community organizing. I want to do canvassing for candidates that I support back in Florida eventually when I have enough money for it. When the midterms come around. These things don't make headlines. You probably wouldn't end up seeing it all that much. But if you've looked into it, I've definitely looked into it. Every single city, every local area that I can think of has like a local DSA chapter. They have clubs at universities and colleges that work together to try to lobby their local governments for certain policies, like climate related or with social issues. There's plenty of community activism that happens. But you can't ignore the worldwide scale.
For sure. Let's focus on everything else, because you've just suggested that people aren't political enough. They are too disaffected. Once again, I really, really disagree with that. We are at the point where we have literally politicized pillows. Pillows. We have gone. You have the My Pillow guy versus that kid from Parkland. I can't remember his name. He was going to make his own
David
good
Hogg.
pillow company.
Yeah.
David Hogg, yeah.
We politicized pillows. If you don't think we have got so much politics coming
Well,
from
he
every
politicized,
realm,
the pillow
every
guy
kidney,
politicized pillows.
Cereal. Why is my ice cream yelling at me about Black Lives Matter? I just want to
What?
buy a damn taco
What?
without being told about how I'm ruining the environment or affecting the world. Like, corporations have literally become full-on. They've embraced this because they know they can get sales out of it. It's every single aspect of our lives. Like, no, we need to actually live. We need to have a little bit of real world perspective as well.
Do you think perhaps there is a something to notice when you see that what you're getting upset about right now are messages on packaging for food and Twitter battles between the surviving victim of a school shooting and the My Pillow guy, and then when you have BLM activists out there trying to advocate for justice or reform of the justice system and systemic top-down changes to help improve the socioeconomic position of Black people in this country. Doesn't it seem like there's maybe a disparity between what you're upset about here and how you feel political disaffectedness doesn't harm the world and what people that are politically involved, mostly on the left, are talking about, the issues that they're concerned about?
Oh, I've seen the memes where it shows hey guys, we've changed the voice actor on The Simpsons to be representative of Black people, and like the Black Lives Matter Wojak, like all we wanted was systemic change. Like, we don't want another rich Hollywood guy being hired or another corporate.
Talking about Wojaks now. This is where we're at.
I agree with that. These issues are ridiculous, and it's crazy that
she's bringing up Wojaks. Okay, maybe she isn't going to pivot back to the book.
Problem there because I see it.
Maybe she's finally. Maybe we're finally off the book.
Add to the conversation, and there are people on a.
And I don't think a Wojak is proof of anything.
We've politicized everything and so much useless stuff. We're talking about the problem with kids' books that are completely harmless and politicizing and having debates over that, which you don't even disagree with. Instead of talking about real issues. Because we just need content. Everyone needs content, don't they?
Sure. So that I don't know what that has to do with what I just said. The argument that I was making is I think that being disaffected from politics is harmful and that everyone should care about making the world better, making their community better as well. And when you brought up ways in which people are too involved in politics, what you brought up was political messages on food packaging and Twitter fights between public figures and not real issues that are going on. It seems like what would you say affecting you right now is like a huge systemic issue that's like really affecting your life very badly?
The lockdown of countries and not being able to see my family.
Okay, that's something that people should care about. Coronavirus. We want to get past this coronavirus shit as soon as possible. We want to distribute vaccines. Is this not a political issue that people should be caring about? Because that's something that affects your life directly.
I want to quickly go back to your point. My point is that
I thought she was about to pivot back to the book.
People are not disaffected. They
gotta use the bathroom again. I'll be right back.
But they are being brought into it and involved in the wrong ways. Rather than on a community level, rather than where they can actually make change, they're being distracted by all of these ridiculous platitudes, which I think ultimately we agree. We've just been talking past each other. So I'm saying people are not disaffected from politics. They are being used and abused by politicians and corporations to talk about issues that make them popular, and they're following groupthink to talk about useless issues instead of thinking for themselves and going and involving themselves in politics that are actually really helpful on a community level. So once again, I think we agree there. We're just talking past each other.
I'm absorbing everything that you're saying here. Okay, I'm internalizing it. I promise. I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like, at least here in America, because I'm most aware of American politics. I know you've traveled the world quite a bit. You're from Canada. You're currently in Australia. For me, here in America, I'm pretty sure most people, or at least a significant amount of people, don't even vote. That's a big issue to me. That is political disaffection at work. And to make it even worse, there are people who are going to decide who they vote for in 2024 or in the midterms based on Dr. Seuss getting canceled or because the My Pillow guy is far right. these are going to be issues that people decide to vote on because it's the culture war. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's the culture war.
No. Cancel culture is a problem for everyone because people are literally afraid of losing their jobs, losing their friendships, losing their reputation.
And that's political.
Cancel culture. And this is not a right-wing issue either. I just saw Lindsay Ellis publish a huge critique of cancel culture that was really phenomenally done from the left. This is not, cancel culture is an issue that is affecting people on every level.
I feel like
it's not, is to ignore working class people that don't get in the media, that get fired from their jobs for posting a meme they thought was funny, that
you're pivoting.
coworker decided was sexist. You're ignoring cancel culture is a serious issue.
You're pivoting.
Is what my point is.
You pivoted into an argument that I feel like supports mine. If cancel culture is so dangerous and it can harm everybody, people can lose their jobs because they tweet out a joke, is that something that we shouldn't be politically disaffected about? That people should be like, okay, maybe we should perhaps look at issues like this a little bit more nuanced and maybe not engage in dogpiling? Because when you advocate and say that political disaffection is good, then you're essentially advocating for the enabling of cancel culture.
Cancel culture has come as a result of the politicizing of everything. We're going to make pillows political. We're going to make ice cream political. We're going to make, every TV show we watch, we have to analyze on a political level and decide whether it's okay or not. Okay. I hate that, and that is also part of what has led to cancel culture.
Hey, Deep Dish, thank you so much.
Any involvement in politics being dragged into it and analyzed on a scale of progressive ideology that in some cases they don't even understand.
Thanks for stream, Dylan. No problem, Deep Dish. Appreciate the 5.
Cancel culture has been around for a lot longer than even the internet has, but cancel culture as we see it today, especially nowadays in recent years, seems to be propagated mostly by the fact that everybody is inside, everybody's on the internet, nobody is able to go out and do things in the real world, so everything that happens on the internet feels like it's going to be the end of the world. Trust me, as a victim of cancel culture, I see the kind of people that go after me and try to cancel me terminally online. Okay, I would say the popularity of I would say the popularity of the internet is what propagates cancel culture the most. People on the right do cancel culture. People on the left do a shit ton of cancel culture. Most of those doing cancel culture are 14-year-olds.
I think it's My Struggle or something. I don't know.
Now,
I agree.
I feel like there is a nuanced conversation, very much like what you referenced Lindsay Ellis had before, that can be had about cancel culture. Political disaffection is one of those things that prevents people from having that conversation because then it becomes two-sided. You don't get, if you can move those politically disaffected
it's actually the ABCs of morality.
Something like cancel culture, instead of it being cancel culture is good, take accountability for that joke that you tweeted back in 2009 that you need to be destroyed for, you need to lose your job, and cancel culture is the end of the world. Everyone is going to die. We need to stop it. Your life could be ruined at any second because of this or this, and it's never okay. It's going to become a two-way battle. No middle of the line that takes a look at it in a nuanced way because of all the political disaffection.
Okay, I'll agree with you there. I disagree to the level of. I think there are some people who are certainly politically disaffected, but I also worry about the over-politicization of everything and everyone. But I think what we're disagreeing here is what people are being politicized over and caring about being the wrong topics and the wrong conversations, and some people being left out of those conversations altogether. I think a big part of this, and this is what conservatives have been bringing up for a long time, is we can't really have that nuanced conversation about how we feel about cancel culture in ways.
Have I read My Struggle? I've not read Mein Kampf. I read like one page and it was like this stupid and closed it.
When this cancel culture exists,
it just was boring. I don't know.
Problem because people are too scared of losing their jobs. People are too scared of ruining their lives over talking about politics. I have friends that have completely left the realm of politics altogether. They are never planning on partaking in it ever again, because they got some crazy docs put up of them online, because they got canceled in some sort of political sphere, because they got in trouble with their employer for posting.
Talking about Caitlin Bennett being an anti-Semite in private, talking about deporting Jews from America.
I always think comparable.
Then I watched the Adam Toledo body cam footage. I did. It's horrific. We'll talk about that next, baby.
Exaggeratory and silly and cringe sometimes, but lots of people make that take, left wing and right wing, and that's her thoughts on the issue. And instead of immediately saying she's a bigot, Let's have that conversation. No, she gets fired from her job. So if you're worried about political disaffection, making sure no one's allowed to talk about issues without being afraid of losing their job or being dogpiled by tons of radical communities is not a great way to do that. So we have to deal with the radical communities. We have to deal with the cancel culture, and we have to deal with the people who are constantly slandering anyone who tries to involve in politics and have nuanced conversations, which you have dealt with as well, and I have dealt with from yourself.
Yeah, so I think there's an elephant in the room that's also a pretty large propagator of this that I didn't necessarily want to get into because it's fairly complicated, but obviously capitalism is a big cause of this as well. Big corporations like Disney, if there's a lot of hubbub happening about someone like Gina Carano is not going to sit down and debate me on stream. I highly doubt it. I added her on Twitter, and she didn't respond. I would love to sit down and have a debate like what we're having now over the issues that Gina Carano was tweeting about.
Oh, no, he's trying to use this as a...
corporations are going to fire an
He's using this
tweets about this
to try
thing
to
that gets
pivot into upset.
another
discussion with somebody else.
And they recognize that it's popular to be
more
more
I thought he was going to use this to try to reach out to her.
Advertise that progressivism in their products, their movies, their food, everything like that, packaging. And obviously the creators of these products are going to have their own political views, and they're going to build a following based around those political views. The Goya beans, the My Pillow, all of that's going to continue to happen when we have these industries whose main motivation is to make money. They're going to do whatever they need to make money. They're never going to go. They're never going to push the envelope too far, obviously, but they will go as far as it takes to make them money. So that seems like something more so to criticize about those industries and the economic system within with which we live, rather than like this intangible idea that kind of floats around the ether that we can't really stick with like a spear to figure out what exactly is causing it or who is propagating it.
Right. Comrade, can I say something about the problem of capitalism? One of the biggest issues I agree with you on all of this, actually. And one of the biggest issues that I've identified, certainly in the media sphere, is something that I'm working on an article on it right now, something I've dubbed systemic tabloidism, and how capitalism, classism, and dehumanization has been pushing journalists to divert all of the important conversations we need to be having to kind of this just like horribly shallow cancel culture type conversation. You know, if you have all of these sociopaths, or not all these sociopaths, some sociopaths and some people that are just dragged into their system of writing, creating clickbait, having to write 4 to 5 articles a day, having to find something to cancel, having to find some problem with society without any deep nuanced view or perspective on it, because they constantly have to make money for the Huffington Post. They have to make money for the Guardian. They have to make money for the ABC, whatever it might be. And it's all become about profit and not about people. And it used to be also about tackling really big problems and powerful people in society. We need to talk about the problem with pedophilia and Prince Andrew. We need to talk about these issues with crime that's going on in government and politicians that are making sketchy deals to make their companies money and crony capitalism. But another aspect of systemic tabloidism is, while pushing people to just write clickbait, they also have realized they can only slander people, and slander makes them more money. And the more money they make, they have more money to defend from slander suits. But they can only slander people of a certain class. Because otherwise, if you slander someone like Hulk Hogan, who can afford to make a sustained court case against you, your whole outlet will shut down.
Didn't Hulk Hogan say, wait, no, Hulk Hogan said oh my God. I'm sorry, but I need to look this up quick.
Have lots of eyeballs on them, but don't have the same amount of money, and just happen to be in direct competition with the mainstream media, which is YouTubers.
They did Titus O'Neil dirty recently.
Of all of their slander, harassment, saying we're horrible bigots, we're ruining politics.
That was terrible. I can't believe they did Titus O'Neil like that at WrestleMania. That was terrible.
It's about money.
Oh my God. They did that to Titus. My man Titus, no.
YouTuber's salary, you'd have to pay 3 years of it to go with the defamation case. And we need to address that. We need to address these problems.
Yeah, of course.
I agree. I am not this like hardcore, we need to have...
You don't get it? Titus O'Neil was famous for saying the N-word.
Free market where you can sell babies heroin and have them working in your...
Yeah, of course. course.
bauxite mine for $2 an hour.
Yeah, of course. I feel like this was a bit of a departure from what I was talking about, but I feel like where you moved into, we have, but it's fun. It's fun. But I feel like this goes back to the political disaffection. People are being sold what sells. And it's mostly not like serious political issues.
Hulk Hogan is not black. Titus O'Neil is black. Since Hulk Hogan said the N-word
in China right
kind of
now.
weird they paired him up with
Most
Titus O'Neil.
people
That's
probably
the
don't
comment.
because that kind of news doesn't sell. So that's what I'm talking about when I say that I want to fight against political disaffection. I feel like that's a huge problem.
So why do you guys not attack the media who have been such a problem in this? This has been a completely largely, if you look at it, the conservatives have been the ones that have been battling with the mainstream media, saying these guys are lying. These guys are manipulating the
because
public.
when conservatives
slandering people,
fighting the media over
attack
what?
The mainstream media, they do it for the wrong reasons and from the wrong position. I attack the mainstream media.
Who decides what the wrong reasons are?
Well, it's personal. That he believes they're the wrong reason.
You can have independent journalists that investigate these things. So when
I attack the mainstream media for slander, you think I'm doing it for the wrong reasons?
Can you give me an example of this?
So, like, let's say the New York Times falsely published that the Christchurch shooter donated to me, and this was republished in multiple different outlets. They then deleted their tweet, but the other outlets had already republished it, so they didn't correct it, and now tons of people think this actually happened. Is that something worthy?
By the way, I'm going to talk about this after, but I just found out that another really small streamer tried to use me being raped to accuse me of racism, and I am out of this world right now.
So, questioning the mainstream media for?
So the Christchurch shooter donated to a organization that I believe you worked with for Borderless, I think was what actually happened. And
no, none of that happened.
From my understanding,
which organization?
It was in Bulgaria. It was in Bulgaria. It was a Bulgarian like militia that was searching for like illegal refugees in the woods, and that organization was associated with like actual designated like white supremacist other organizations.
So this is
and
the
they
first
donated to
I'm
that.
Hearing of that, and that wasn't the claim.
I'm not claiming that you knew about
Times
that, but I'd already learned about that, and I knew of that, so I understand where you're coming from because I'm pretty sure the Christchurch shooter didn't donate to you.
That's not even the claim the New York Times made, and I've never heard of that, and I feel like I would have heard of it by now if that were even remotely true.
Oh, was it Generation?
Maybe you can send that to me.
Maybe. Yeah, sure. I can whenever if you want me to. I have to do it off screen.
But anyways, the point there is that they are spreading demonstrable slanderous lies that ruin people's lives.
Did they
not correcting it?
Did they correct it? Did they remove it from the article?
No, they did. They just deleted their tweet about it, and then all of these other publications had already shared it and shared the tweet and cited the tweet, and they never posted a correction. It was never adjusted.
Then you're losing out on a lot of money right now. I know it's expensive, but the payoff.
No, I'm not. Do you know how much the average?
You can sue for that. You could if you can prove that these media outlets knowingly lied about something you can objectively prove to be untrue. That there's no evidence anywhere that the Christchurch shooter actually donated to you. You can make quite a bit of money off of a suit for that.
You think I haven't talked to lawyers about this? Well, I believe the quote directly from my lawyer that I spoke to last month was, "Lauren, defamation is a rich man's game." And this is where the classism comes into it once again.
Oh, classism's a big issue. Don't get me wrong. I know about slap suits, but like, if you can.
Okay, let me ask you, Xander. Do you have 100K just?
No, I don't.
Around?
You're much larger than I am,
though. Well, then you couldn't do it either. I don't have 100K sitting around. I don't know how much
Lauren
YouTubers make, but
Lauren is doing really well here.
Just have hundreds of thousands of dollars that they can throw away. Plus, in the States, you have to be able to prove malice. You have to be able to prove all these extenuating factors. So the media are able to get away with so many lies, so much dishonesty. I'll even point out the ABC here. I actually need to go and correct it today. I've been meaning to, because I accidentally believed the ABC, who shared a video of this dance crew twerking in front of a bunch of, like, doing kind of a twerk style dance in front of the launching of a military ship, and the governor general was there and all these high up individuals in military. And the way they do these ships is these ships adopt the historic names of military boats that have already gone out and set sail, people who have died ships that have been kind of sunk, or not kind of sunk in World War II. And the idea is when you give them the same name and rename them, the crews never die and they live on. It's a very important ceremony that occurs here.
I feel like this is like a really big pivot, but I looked it up right now, and it does not seem like defamation suits are nearly as expensive as you made them out to be.
Okay, wait, can we get back to that? I just want to make this point here.
Okay, sure.
So I initially shared it and I was like, this is like, read your audience. This looks ridiculous. What are you guys doing? Everyone looks so uncomfortable there. Turns out, actually the dance crew were the victims. They went to go hire an Aboriginal dance crew to do a kind of Aboriginal dance to open the ceremony. And the dance crew asked them, would you like a contemporary, more pop culture dance, or would you like a traditional dance? Whoever hired them said they wanted the modern pop culture one, so they did that, and the ABC went on to edit the Governor General watching when he wasn't even there, concocting this entire situation that make the dancers look horrible, that make it look like they're just disrespecting the Governor General and mocking this, when none of that occurred. And this happens on a daily basis, both towards the right-wing audience who will get outraged over it and a left-wing audience who will get outraged over it. And we cannot have proper conversations about politics. We cannot have any sort of real battle against the problems caused by the powers that be.
What? Hold on, you're going on. You're gish galloping.
When we are getting so much misinformation.
Okay,
when we are getting so much misinformation.
Okay,
that's the point I'm making. But sorry, go ahead with the defamation case, because I can show you the email from my lawyer quoting me 100K to 150.
Okay. Maybe you have a bad lawyer. I don't know. I've never sued anyone for defamation.
No, that's the average.
I've never sued anyone for defamation before, but it seems as though in most cases, whenever a news organization, a mainstream news organization, puts out a outright slanderous, easy to prove lie, typically they're held to account for that. Now, don't get me wrong. Slap suits are a big problem. You're aware of like what a slap suit is, right?
Sorry, explain that. But I'm just getting over the most mainstream outlets are not held accountable for slander, and it's so difficult cross-border. It is so difficult. Once again, you have to be able to prove malice. There's a statute of limitations, so if you don't do it within a year, you can't sue them anymore. There are so many extenuating circumstances that would not be included in what you just looked up in your Google search. I really would encourage people to look up a story, which surprisingly was finally covered properly by BuzzFeed, about a Polish family. I have to find the name. Polish photographer.
Man, Xander's really not that good at this, is he? I'm so sorry for Xander.
Listen, all right, before you go on any longer, I'll take your word for it that these big organizations are able to get away with spreading blatant lies. But at least from what I've seen,
when I bring
especially
Lauren on for the Hippie Championship, Lauren v. Vosh,
I've seen them go back on articles that I've been involved in.
It'd be a hard one to judge, though.
Involvement with this one,
because it gets so much attention. I know no matter what I do, people would be angry.
Voluntarily go back and change it once they're made
people
aware.
Angry at me forever.
And it wasn't a big deal. They went back, they changed it. I think it had something to do with Philip DeFranco. This is typically what ends up happening. If there are cases where some person is lied about by a mainstream media organization, if I find out about it, you better believe me to get on top of that shit, okay? I'm a very big propagator of the idea that if you have a serious issue with someone, then you shouldn't have to lie about them in order to bring up that problem. But in most cases, it doesn't really seem like that's...
You can never be angry at me? Thanks, Gailey.
In most cases.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Lauren v. Destiny?
In most cases,
either would be good.
Do not correct themselves.
Either would be good
because people can't afford to. And if they did once or twice because you sent them an email, that's very nice of them. But this doesn't usually happen. I'm in multiple cases.
Mad at me for not curing cancer yet? Well, I'll do it eventually.
Luckily, in some cases, I've been able to find lawyers that are willing to do it pro bono, which is not common at all. But no, it's not simple, and I think anyone who does a little more research than surface level would find that. Sorry, I'm just trying to find one really important article here. Okay, here it is. There's a guy named Molodinsky. There was a huge BuzzFeed article about it, and he's a Polish man who had a ton of articles in the Metro, Daily Mail.
Hold on. The example you brought up, ABC apologizes for Australian Navy ship twerking video after dancers allege deceptive editing. The twerking, dancing
and
troupe
thank
who
goodness
performed.
they apologized. But what I'm saying is this deceptive. Once that has
This
spread,
hold on, Lauren. This always
most people don't
happens.
see the
Wait, this
apology.
always happens when I talk to people and they bring up these examples and I can't look them up right away. Thankfully, I have my chat here. But usually, whenever I hear these examples and I can't look them up right away, later I'll go and I'll find out that these were accounted for. These things were apologized for. These things were amended.
My point,
but
yes.
I can't look
In
them up at the moment.
In some cases, the apology does happen, which thank goodness. The unfortunate part is most people don't see the apology. And I've experienced this so much in my personal life. I had a huge article. I think it was by the New Yorker.
Mark my words, one day lecture fan will be hippie to be champion. I'm calling it now.
But they wrote an article alleging that I lied to individuals that I had in my movie Farmlands, and I took advantage of them. And it was really awful. It made me look very, very bad. Now, I sent them proof that this was untrue. I sent them all the messages with this individual that was in the movie that showed that she was overjoyed by her portrayal. She was so excited to talk to us about the farm murders. She
no CTV, maybe.
How much attention and joy she was getting from it. And the article just said the complete opposite. Ariel, her name was, sent me an apology and said, "I'm so sorry. I can't believe I misreported this. Let's try to fix this." So we went back and forth for a month, emailing back and forth, and they refused to put in the article that it was untrue. And they said they would publish in letters to the editors my correction, and they even inserted in my correction, "It is Lauren's opinion that this is inaccurate."
All right.
It wasn't my opinion. It wasn't accurate. They published the letters for the editor. It was never seen by anyone. The original article was never corrected. It never went to print. It was just on a random webpage of the site you can never find. That's what usually happens.
So I assume you're referencing the quote from the lady whose father was killed on that farm in South Africa, right?
Correct.
From my understanding, the exact quote was that she felt exploited and that she hadn't been fully made aware of the purpose of the interview. She didn't know what your goal was or why you were asking these questions. And when she found out, she felt like she'd been exploited. And that was the quote that I saw.
We sent all of the private messages talking to her, which she was fully aware of what the interview was for. She loved the portrayal. She thought it was all great. And we sent these to the New Yorker, and they all apologized. They literally apologized to me for publishing what they had and not fact-checking with me, and said, yes, this was inaccurate, and then refused to publish the correction. They only published it on an unseen page and said it was my opinion rather than truth.
Okay.
So I can send you I've uploaded it to my Facebook and Twitter before, but I can re-upload it after this or send it to you after this if you'd like. But that's what usually happens.
Well, why did the lady say that she felt exploited then?
That's a very good question, and I would love to see what the actual questions were from the journalist, because I have done interviews with journalists where they have taken quotes of mine completely out of context, completely out of entirely different conversations, and put them
Weren't they supposed to be talking about a book
they've written beforehand, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happened in this instance.
Okay. So what was the publication that you said?
I think it was the New Yorker.
It was the New Yorker. Okay, I'm not seeing anything from the New Yorker here. Every article that came up when I looked up Lauren Sothern Christchurch donated money, all I see is the Christchurch gunman.
Sorry, I was talking about that South Africa one. That was in the Daily Dot and the
Independent?
No, not the. Oh, maybe they said it too, but I can't remember what it's called. There was one other outlet that repeated it, and it was like direct. Oh, you know what? I've got an email to my lawyer here. But the point, anyways, we're getting off topic. Can we finish the book here? Because the point I was making.
Yep, pivoting back to the book.
We can't have these nuanced
there it is.
About politics until
of course.
we deal with the people
she has that trump card.
Controlling the narrative and controlling how people think, lying and misportraying and misdirecting what conversations the public should actually be having first. And until we hold these people to account, the public are going to be constantly pitted against each other, have people's views misportrayed to them, have people that are legit. I mean, look what happened to Bernie Sanders. There are so many people that are kind of those who want to criticize the establishment that could get completely torn down by biased media that are not addressed.
Hold on. It says here,
biased systems.
It's a quote. So what you're referencing from the Daily Dot is a quote saying that the Christchurch shooter had donated to your media company. or donated to a media company you're affiliated with, not specifically to you.
No, he said he donated to my media company, and that is why he deleted the tweet. And even that isn't true, that he donated to a company I was affiliated with. The Rebel Media hosted the finance.
Wait, so the
Rebel Media, sorry?
The person that the Daily Dot interviewed lied about you. It wasn't the Daily Dot lying about you.
Zan is dragging her back away from the book.
The Roos.
Back into the weeds. Back into the weeds.
Kevin Roos. Okay. Yeah. So they interviewed him and he lied about you. As far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware, to be fair.
Thousands of retweets. Yeah. Anyways, so these are just these statements that keep going out, are completely false and easy to debunk, but these publications, I've sent the Daily Dot, I've sent all these people to lawyers and asked about it, and they're like, there's no point. There's no point. The amount of time and the amount of money is not worth it, and it's unlikely, they'll just be able to say, there was no malice behind it. So it's fine. And they'll probably just ignore your messages. I've sent tons of letters to outlets. Some I'm pursuing a bit harder than others, and hopefully that will turn out. But defamation cases can take years, like 7 years.
Yeah, they can be drawn out.
But
yeah.
by that time, people's reputations are ruined. And once again, you guys might think this is just a right-wing issue, but this ruins lots of people's lives that are normal people that have no political affiliations. And that's why I was bringing up that Polish photographer, Molodinsky, who had all these stories in the Daily Mail and the Daily Dot published about him, saying he lied about his community, saying he lied about another couple, calling them drunkards, that were on a sleigh.
Thing is, he doesn't have all these resources ready. He didn't even read the book beforehand, then read the book after calling her out. That was all stuff he would need research on. He should have stayed to the ideas that were not Lauren-centric. It should have been on the puberty blockers and stuff like that, because that stuff was actually he was doing well on. But now,
mental health issues, like it destroyed his life.
It's getting clapped.
I get it. I understand. I've talked about this issue a lot before. I think if anyone wants to learn more, there's actually a pretty good John Oliver segment about slap suits. He criticized, what was his name? Something Murray. He was the owner of a coal company, and when he criticized him, Murray levied a bunch of slap suits against him, thinking that they could drain all of his money and they wouldn't be able to afford to keep on defending against these bogus lawsuits. This kind of thing, Bob Murray, yes. This kind of thing does happen. And there is worth in criticizing mainstream media and these large companies. I think the problem is our capitalist system, but I think we're ready to move on to the final letter. Are you ready, Lauren?
All right, let's do
final
it.
letter.
All right.
I'm excited.
The last letter is X.
Please don't be
this
N.
Is a hard one.
Thank
God.
God.
I was thinking like,
thank God.
What's
You're
gonna...
skipping over patriotism?
I thought it was going to be N, thank goodness.
It depends on how much.
My goodness.
My main idea for patriotism isn't anything crazy. It's just, hold on, I'll just ask you. Do you think if there's like a very, like a tyrant, that was another letter, if there is a tyrant in charge of your country, is it unpatriotic to say, criticize that tyrant or to burn your country's flag or to protest to try to make that country better? Is that
Look at our numbers on YouTube for last month.
Well, this was going to be my point.
Top is, it's kind of hard to see.
Because I actually think, arguably, throughout history, patriotism has been more of a left-leaning thing than a right-leaning thing. I, of course, portray it in a neutral term.
Doing great.
But, every single anti-government, aristocrat movement has considered itself patriotic, whether it be the Risorgimento, probably pronounced that wrong, the Italian radical left-wing patriotic movement, which was anti-Habsburg.
Yeah, we have a YouTube channel, Dylan Burns TV on YouTube.
We call it a post-colonial movement.
Exclamation point YouTube and chat, you'll see it.
Revolution, which of course, by standards of the time, was going against the rule of a king at a time where absolute monarchy was a thing worldwide, and they were instituting a constitutional democracy, which was clearly a move to the left. The Viet Cong were explicitly patriots and nationalists, most liberation movements.
So what you're saying
I just wanted to make the point that patriotism is not some sort of relic.
Ooh, she's pivoting to the area where she thought he was going to bring up. He didn't bring up, so she's pivoting to it because she's prepared for it and has a dialogue tree for it.
So what you're saying is, at least this is my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is what I believe. I don't think patriotism has any left-right political bias, personally. It's more of a... What I'm really curious about is it unpatriotic to do something like burn the American flag? Would that be an unpatriotic action?
Ooh, this is a smart pivot.
Patriotic, yeah, to burn the flag, because you know the idea of patriotism is you love your country and the people in it, sometimes
but
even over
the hard area to argue.
or the powers that be. It's about the people, and that flag I'd like to think is a symbol of the country and not necessarily the government, and that's been the case throughout all of these revolutions in history. The revolutionaries, liberation movements have waved their country's flags at some points, even while opposing the current government.
She's back on her rant. I love this song.
I completely disagree. I think that the fact that at least I know you're Canadian.
When she rants, man, it's another tune. It's a tune we've heard a million times.
The American flag is the most patriotic thing you can do because we're in a very privileged position where we have the right to criticize the government, which a lot of people in a lot of places in the world don't have the right to do. There are laws against burning the flag in a lot of other countries. Our veterans, our soldiers fought for our right to be able to criticize our government. And if that takes the form of our freedom of speech, our freedom of expression takes the form of burning the American flag because we want to make our country better, and we are trying to demonstrate where we feel like the country is right now and how it needs to be improved, I feel like that is the most patriotic thing that you can do. Burning the symbol that represents your country.
Because the flag is supposed to be a symbol of the country, not necessarily the government of the day, as the flag stays the same throughout all of the governments.
Well, the government runs the country.
You know, it's not... I don't think so. I think a country is the people in it, and the government are just some people we have put in as organizers that are supposed to be responsible to us and not the other way around.
But when this doesn't have to just be referring to the government. You can also be criticizing the culture of your country or behavior or things that are happening.
If the flag were a symbol of just one government at the time, like they switched it and they're like, this is officially the flag of the Republicans, that would make sense. You know, if you went out and you were opposing Trump and burning a MAGA flag, that makes sense to me. But to burn the American flag just seems like a cell phone.
Even if you were burning the American flag just for fun, just because you were like, I'm just going to burn it.
Okay, here you go.
That action is patriotic
because, I don't know. I think it's unpatriotic and dumb. Burning the presidential effigy, an effigy of the president, that may be patriotic if the president is being oppressive and horrible to the people, sure. But I disagree with you on the flag point. I think that's...
My reasoning for why I think it's patriotic to burn the flag is because you're exercising a right that is pretty unique to Americans, where you are allowed to burn the symbol of your country, because there's a lot of people that don't have that right. And America's all about freedom, exercising that freedom to do something.
So if people go in the street and start yelling the N-word, is that patriotic because they're expressing their right to do it? And they're in America and they have the right to do that.
America is pretty racist, so yeah, it could be pretty patriotic.
Ooh. Oh wait, did Xander bite? Why did you bite the bullet on that, Xander? If
America is about racism, then yeah, that would probably be pretty patriotic. It's a subjective thing.
Oh, you think patriotism is subjective?
Absolutely.
You don't think it's
many people believe that criticizing the government is unpatriotic.
Patriotism is loving your country, wanting the best for your country and the people in it. Because I would argue that that's
most people's opinion on it.
The word patriotism has a definition. The only thing that differs is how you think we should make the country better. And if you think that people, I don't think there's anyone, I mean, maybe, I don't think there's anyone that thinks they're making the country better by yelling the N-word in a public square to rile people up.
What is better is subjective. People who wish slavery would come back believe that there not being slavery is unpatriotic. So of course, if somebody believes that, they'd be going out in the street yelling the N-word.
You know, maybe I just disagree with you because I don't think either of those things make the country better, but would you agree that at least the definition of patriotism is wanting the best for your country and wanting it to be a better place? And this is why, in some instances,
I agree with that definition.
Consider Black Lives Matter activists. If
she so desperately wants to shut the N-word. Logan, don't misbehave in chat.
They can absolutely
Logan.
Okay, yeah, we don't disagree there. But I believe that, like,
what do you think of this, Logan? How do you think this is going?
Ability to have, like, freedom of speech, for example, criticizing the state of the country, the culture of the country, all of that is patriotic because one of the core, the First Amendment is about having the right to do that, to even criticize your right. The First Amendment grants you the right to criticize having the right to criticize the First Amendment. You can go back as far as you want with that one. No, I believe that's patriotic.
I don't disagree with you that you should, I know some people disagree with me on the right, but sure, I don't think you should be tackled and have be pepper sprayed or put in jail for burning the flag or criticizing the country. I don't think that.
Because I know a lot of people who do believe that, but I'm glad you don't.
I would disagree with someone who argued that was improving the country. That's where I would go. Especially if, because I've also made the argument before that, you know, sometimes you have to be offensive to make critiques of the powers that be and some of the social
Zan could be doing a better job. He's no Vosh. Honestly, I actually think Zan is. Yeah, I agree. Generally, he's not. He could do a lot better. Like this is
with you there that sometimes
not going grill. He's taking an L.
Powers that be. I just would disagree.
Taking an L. He didn't read the book, but then wanted to criticize it.
I don't think
goes and then so she agrees to debate. So he reads the book, and so he has to stretch to make every point. And every time he gets off the book to debate her on something she wants to talk about,
I'm glad.
Whenever she gets in a corner, she can pivot out by just saying, this isn't in the book. I never talked about trans people in the book. Let's go back. Because the one area he did really well was on puberty blockers, and she just, when she was boxed in, she just pivoted out.
It does seem like these issues, like I remember back in 2016, everybody was arguing over the right to burn the American flag. But are you ready for X? I was thinking, how are you gonna rhyme X? There are not a lot of words that start with X. However,
I was go out of the box.
I was really surprised when I saw X is for Xanderhal. I was pretty surprised. I didn't know that you were so aware of me. No, but X.
Yeah, you're welcome.
X is for censorship.
So happy you got a copy and saw it.
Yeah. X is for censorship. Xenial, Zulos, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Xylophone or Xenon. There are so many ways I'm already flustered. There are so many words I could lean on. X isn't only a letter, though. It can be very dangerous, so you should know. X is the symbol of censorship. Free speech and thought are what that seeks to trip. Or to strip? I can't read. Censorship's dangers are vital to know because XXXXX, about as ironically as many times as my name has letters, so that could just be censoring Xanderhal. That's my headcanon. Those X's are censoring my name.
That's why it's dangerous.
Because Xanderhal. Oh. Are you getting curious what's blocked by that X? Sorry, they censored that part of the text. You'll never know what it said or might say. This is why censorship's never okay. So we're gonna do a bit of a what's that YouTube channel where they ask like the rapper, they like play one of the rapper's lyrics and they're like, okay, so what were you thinking? What did you mean by that? What were you thinking? I forget what it's called. It's like Genius, yeah. So what were you thinking when you came up with those bars?
Well, let me tell you. Now, generally, I think that censorship is not a great idea. I think throughout history, it has been used to shut down dissident voices. It's been used to shut down criticisms of tyrannical governments. It's been used to shut up voices that we really need to hear, all sorts of perspectives, whether left or right. And as a general rule, I don't think it's a good thing. I'm sure you're going to sit here and try to pull up the exceptions, try to see if you can get me on one of those. But once again, it's a kid's book, not a political textbook. It's a general rule.
I actually just have questions, not really much to argue. Yeah. I'm curious, what is your definition of censorship? Like, how broad is it?
Well, the shutdown, especially on a political level, legal level, of people's First Amendment rights, being able to have a conversation, and even on a private level, I would argue that I have problems with corporations that are supposed to be platforms for free speech, like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, that have claimed publicly, we want people to have open debate, shutting people up because they are criticizing authorities, or shutting people up because they have opinions that aren't necessarily deemed to be within the status quo.
Terrible.
So
just
this morning, with no explanation, James O'Keefe lost his Twitter account because he's been putting out leaks of CNN saying they deliberately tried to sway the election using propaganda. I think that's really worthy to talk about, whether our media are unbiased or whether they are deliberately trying to influence us in political ways. And his account was shut down. Now, we haven't really been given an explanation for that yet. Maybe it was because there's a legal suit behind it. I don't know. Maybe there's an explanation. But if there's not, I think that's a very wrong thing to do and very dangerous, because then people can't see critiques of authority and genuine wrongdoing.
So You bring up a lot of examples, so I want to make sure I got ahead on this one just because I'm a very curious boy. I like learning about things. And it seems like the reason that Twitter banned James O'Keefe was for violating its platform manipulation and spam policy. I guess what he did was he had multiple accounts going and he was making sock accounts.
Well, I'll have to see proof for that because I doubt that's necessary, since he just kind of sends out, like, when he comes out with his videos, he'll DM people, including me, and say, hey, do you want to share this? I don't think that would be necessary, but if it is, then fair enough. You know, if someone's genuinely violated the terms of service, if someone's genuinely done something wrong, I am against that. But, you know, you see, and I think that censorship can happen in lots of different ways as well, and you see it. Okay, sorry, I'm getting into a bit of a rant here, but the point is,
when
like,
isn't she ranting?
When people have been told, no, you're not allowed to criticize the church, or we're going to burn you at a stake. No, we are going to arrest you if you have socialist opinions. No, we are going to arrest you if you have nationalist opinions, or if you to speak out against Stalin, we're going to put you in front of a firing squad. That kind of censorship, we'll just keep it basic like there, because we can get into all the convoluted stuff happening today with big tech. But that basis, that's what I'm talking about, is, you know, genuine oppression and government shutting up and censoring genuine critiques and genuine questions and concerns about powers that be.
Okay, so you're cool with like TOS, or like, are you cool with like Twitter TOS? Like if someone breaks the TOS that you agree to, then someone getting banned, that's completely okay?
Depends what the TOS is, and also depends how it's being applied. For example, you see on YouTube, okay, they've got the TOS where you can't talk about shootings and violence and this kind of stuff, or you'll be demonetized. And I think that to an extent is a type of censorship, saying we're going to take away your income if you speak about certain issues. And you saw what happened is lots of people who ended up talking about mass shootings, such as Casey Neistat, even just fundraising for it, had strikes on their channels and were demonetized.
I did too.
But for some reason, mainstream figures, I can't remember what his name, one of the hosts of The Tonight Show, could do a huge monologue on shootings and remain monetized, which makes you wonder, is this, once again, one of these classism problems where you have an elite
Dylan
class
Burns
all
range?
protecting
Oh,
each other
goodness.
and all allowing
I'm
each other to
honestly,
come
like,
say certain
I
things and
think,
have certain
okay, I'm gonna,
conversations. But if
Xander
the
took an
lower
L here.
class,
I'm sorry to
the
say it,
people
but he
that
took an
aren't
L here.
talk about it, they'll be demonetized. And
I had
have
high
rights
hopes,
taken
but
away
all right.
because
Oof.
they want to control the narrative and they want to control the wealth. And I think how those TOS are applied, we all know are not applied fairly. We've seen it before, time and time again, and that's worth critiquing and worth talking about.
All right. I am someone who does a lot of studying into YouTube's algorithm and how the behind the scenes works with it, and I can assure you that is not most likely not some bias against smaller creators. What seems to occur is the reason why a lot of my content, about 90% of it maybe, is demonetized. Or not demonetized, but like yellow $sign or red $sign. I very rarely get the green. I get like a lucky 2 or 3 green $signs in a row, and it's a really good day. I smile. The reason why this tends to happen is the reason why YouTube implemented their demonetization policy was to help them keep ads on the platform. A lot of people rely on YouTube in order to make a living. And most people on YouTube aren't making content that's, you know, controversial. Most people are Minecraft Let's Players or vloggers or people doing stuff that advertisers aren't going to have an issue with. But when you have hardcore political topics, currently happening events being discussed, advertisers get really iffy about that, and they get really mad if they find out their ads are playing on something they don't want it to play on, because that could get their company in trouble. This is just a symptom of capitalism. So YouTube's in a position where to protect their income and the income of their creators, they have to implement a system that those advertisers will agree on. It allows them to grade that content, be like, okay, is this too yikesy for us to run ads on? All right, there we go. Now, YouTube's a very big platform. A lot of people make content on it. In the grand scheme of things, nobodies. I'm a nobody compared to Jimmy Fallon or John Oliver. Most of these people like us cannot be graded on an individual level by YouTube. Maybe we'll get lucky, and if we submit a regrade of our videos, a review, then maybe we'll get the green $sign, or an actual person will review it more closely, but that usually can't be done. But someone like John Oliver, Jimmy Fallon, larger figures that have a larger media presence, typically YouTube can trust them not to break their TOS or do anything that advertisers would get mad about because they run on TV and they get advertisements there all the time. So this is more of a capitalism problem than a elite is keeping the little guy down problem.
That was a really good one, actually. You know what? Come back, kid.
I agree with you, and I think you are making a valid point here. But it doesn't explain people like Shoe on Head, for example, who just put out a video on Hell World or whatever, and she got demonetized, completely not getting any profit from it, and yet YouTube is still playing ads on her videos. So they're literally just taking away the income of smaller creators that may compete with larger mainstream outlets while still making money off them and while still keeping ads.
This is also difficult because Xanderhal is in a position where he doesn't want to, he shouldn't be defending YouTube, but he's going to be perceived as defending YouTube. And YouTube has terrible policies of dealing with the creators.
I forget what his name was, but I know there was a YouTuber that does like deep dives into the YouTube algorithm and how to break it, talked about this problem and how it was a glitch, because this guy does like deep dives into the YouTube algorithm. But from my understanding, the reason why Shoe on Head's, and I love Shoe on Head, me and her are friends. I love her videos on Hell World. They're very good videos. The most recent one that she uploaded discussed a lot of stuff that's going on right now. It's obviously not advertiser friendly. That's easily going to get demonetized, or at least the yellow dollar sign. And she probably knew that going in. As for ads playing on the video anyway, from my understanding, that was a glitch. It's a convenient glitch for YouTube, but nonetheless, from the experts that I've seen that like built their entire channels on investigating the YouTube algorithm and how to exploit it, they've said it is also a glitch. So,
but even the point you've made there, which is they can trust these mainstream media outlets more and know that they're going to be more safe with advertisers, that's still a continuation of implementing and supporting the class system that tries to prevent, poorer, lower class, smaller creators from breaking into the big time and making money off doing it. And I think that needs to be questioned and that needs to be challenged. And I also, I think most people would agree, left wing or right wing, whatever their views may be, that we have seen over time the TOS not applied properly. We have seen it unfairly applied. And if I'm wrong, if the TOS is never being misused, if it's always correct, maybe I am wrong. I don't know.
I got my old people news.
Sure, TOS can never be applied completely equally until we have like with Twitter, YouTube, all these systems, these are all run by algorithms and bots. Typically, unless it's something that gets a shit ton of media attention, there is no way that YouTube is able to go over I think it's like 4 million hours of footage are uploaded to YouTube every day. It's something insane.
Dylan, why don't you get your alternative newspapers?
Millions upon millions upon millions of tweets being uploaded every day. This is all done by robots. And robots, maybe sometime in the future when we have ultra high advanced quantum computing, maybe then they'll be able to perfectly apply TOS. Right now, that's not always going to be the case. The people that are going to have direct action done upon them by the company that runs whatever platform, getting banned or getting unbanned, it's typically going to be done when it drums up a large media frenzy about it, right? Like if it gets trending on Twitter that someone was falsely taken down. I mean, I'm pretty close to the YouTube drama community. I've sort of made friends with a lot of those people. There are completely apolitical YouTubers that get falsely striked down all the time for no reason whatsoever, and they get brought back when enough people on Twitter
everyone asks who is Dylan Burns TV, but no one asks how is Dylan Burns TV. I don't think this is
so much
a
deliberate agenda by like the elites or whatever. I think this has to do with the incompetence of a company that has no other way of regulating this massive platform and how many people use it.
I think that's part of it, and I won't discount that at all because I do think that that's an absolutely fair analysis. But we've also, we've observed on a large level where they would have individually analyzed both because they're big figures. This hypocrisy and not applying things evenly taking place, like with Donald Trump when he was taken off Twitter and every platform. He was even taken off Pinterest, as if Trump's sitting there with pin boards, making up how he's going to arrange his floral, arrangements in his house.
Hey.
But
why was Trump banned?
He was going to use them on Pinterest. He was going to show them how they organize his new DC once it burns to the ground with his Proud Boy gangs.
An insurrection.
Okay, but when is Dylan Burns? Who knows?
He tweeted something that some people would interpret as, well, I guess this
why
is what
Dylan
happens
Burns?
when
Okay,
you an
let's
election,
calm down.
and for saying that
the sad thing is this whole thing is Dylan has more views than Xander right now. That's not true.
Go home in peace and don't behave.
That's
this
not true.
way.
Look at this.
But we
he has
know
more views than me.
for
He's on
ages,
YouTube too.
Tons of Democrats have accused the Russians of stealing elections. They've accused Trump of being an invalid president. We've seen Colin Kaepernick.
Wait, we have
come out
evidence
and
that the
say,
Russians tried to get
"Support
involved
Biden," and
to
not get
enforce.
banned
We
off
have
Twitter.
CIA
So
documents
this has been
unclassified that they did this
like,
twice.
this
Twice.
application
2
of
elections.
banning people
2016,
for
2020.
Apparently or potentially supporting riots and for saying elections are rigged. It's only used one way very often.
Lauren,
I didn't see a single person being banned for saying Russians stole the election.
So Lauren, I have bad news. You have stepped on my trap card. So
okay.
Trump's banning was because, for one, he alleged that he repeatedly, over the course, a long period of time, alleged that he won the election. Not that, something might have happened, that he won the election, the Democrats stole it, it was illegal, and when he said, stand back and stand by, you can interpret that however you like, but even once this insurrection happened at the Capitol, he said, you're very special, I appreciate that you did this, but this is what happens when you steal the election. This is why he got banned. A lot of people saw it. He obviously broke tons of other TOS.
That's what I said.
On top of that,
I agree with you.
On top of that, what was the other thing that you brought up after the Trump thing?
I said stolen election and riots.
Yes.
I mentioned both things you're mentioning slightly differently.
So you argued that it was slanderous for the Democrats to argue, or for like the mainstream media Democrats, left-wing people.
I didn't say slanderous. I said they too.
Or it was the same thing. It was comparable.
Said elections were illegitimate, which is why people are getting banned for saying the election results were illegitimate.
They invested this.
Ban one side.
They investigated this, and they found that Russiagate. It wasn't Trump colluding, but it was Trump's administration.
Reno, thanks for gifting Tier 1 to Internet.
Colluded with Russia to leak those things about the Democrats to help him in the election. There was collusion found. There were prosecutions that happened over this. The court documents are completely available.
So I completely disagree with that analysis.
Oh boy.
But way before that,
gonna go into reality denial now.
Any investigations and any conclusion to investigations, people were saying Russians stole the election, and they weren't getting banned.
Because it had already been found that the Russians were paying for ads on things like Facebook. That the Russians were working to help get Trump elected.
Okay.
That had already been found.
So now we've discovered
the collusion was the part that had to be proven.
So now we've discovered that CNN was working to get Biden into office. Is that election stolen? Can I now say the election was stolen by CNN?
We don't have evidence that that's the case.
Did CNN hack the RNC to leak information about Trump?
No, they said they controlled the minds of the people with propaganda to try to get Trump out of office. Can I say that the election was stolen by CNN now without getting banned?
I don't think that's comparable, no. I don't think that's comparable to leaking information from the party.
You're saying that because Russians bought bots to spread information, that's stealing an election, but I can't say when CNN openly says
the reason why you heard people say...
one of the largest platforms in America to try to spread propaganda to get Trump out of office. That isn't the same.
The reason why you heard random libs on Twitter saying that the election was hacked by the Russians was because it had already been revealed that the Russians were spreading misinformation on platforms to try to get Trump elected. That's where that came from. The Democrats did not try to overturn the election. It was nowhere near comparable to what the Republicans did after Biden won the election. And the reason why now Russiagate ended up being true was because after all the investigations, they found that, yes, Trump's administration, the Republican Party, worked with the Russians to hack the DNC and spread that stuff, the emails about Hillary, to help get Trump elected. That's what was found.
I can only do this for like 8 more minutes.
It wasn't between Trump and the Russians.
This is suffering.
That's why Trump didn't get in any trouble legally for it. However, people in Trump's administration and people that Trump worked with did, because there was collusion. It was found. The court documents are there. You can look them up.
Let me ask you. How much money do you know how much money the Russians spent on ads?
I have no clue. No, not off the top of my head.
Okay, it wasn't even a fraction, not even a slight fraction of what Biden spent on the election, or even what CNN would spend on a couple days of media. They spent $100,000 on Facebook ads. And you're trying to allege that that's comparable to CNN spending 4 years of primetime TV trying to get their candidate elected? That's not even remotely comparable.
Why are you going back to the people? I'm not talking about... Holy shit! I'm sorry. I'm getting a little bit frustrated, but I'm gonna try to keep my cool. Okay? Why do you keep going back to comparing what came out from the Mueller investigation and the numerous investigations that were done by the U.S. government to find out whether or not there was collusion between Trump's administration, his election.
You just admitted there was no collusion between Trump and the Russians. You were saying
Trump's administration, and his like running party.
So what was the exact thing that the Russians did that won Trump the election?
The Republican Party and Trump's administration, not Trump, people in Trump's administration worked with the Russians to hack the DNC to leak those emails from Hillary's private server.
So Hillary was doing illegal things, and that got exposed.
That's still collusion with the Russians. That's where the collusion thing came from.
Okay, so Hillary was.
Wait, I'm not trying to argue in favor of Hillary here. The election was like back in 2016. I'm not trying to argue that. That's collusion.
So you're saying people having access to more information, real legitimate information about what the other candidate was doing, won Trump the election. Okay.
Wait, people went to jail for colluding with the Russians for this. We were colluding with an enemy country to hack into a government party in our country. Well, I guess not our country.
Okay, I'm a libtard. I don't like that terminology.
They colluded with another country. This is treason. To leak information on another party. That's where Russia came from.
I understand
that was what came of it. There were convictions. You can look it up. The court documents are public. There's some redacted stuff because for national security, but it is completely available there. This isn't a secret.
Foreign adversary maybe.
Okay, fine.
But enemy country, I just don't. I hate that terminology.
That's why I don't think.
It just seems like Cold War. That's what it just sounds like every time I hear that.
I have never argued that once.
Seems like people beating the drums,
on the progressive side of things, Democrats, big tech, are arguing that people.
Enemy country is good optics, yeah, but it's harmful language. So
with the election that Biden won, no one has argued that people should be censored for talking about potential collusion with the Trump-Hillary election. It's only one side arguing there should be censorship.
Pedantic blockhead.
Well, I'm saying there is legitimate information showing CNN colluded to try to get Trump out of office.
Lexifer, I bet you've been happy as all hell with all the great takes on Afghanistan recently, right?
My concern isn't people who want to talk about it. I'm talking about it right now. My problem is when people deliberately spread misinformation. There were people on the right on these platforms that were saying the election was stolen. There was no evidence, no concrete evidence whatsoever that's been found that hasn't been debunked about there being that the Democrats stole the election, that Biden stole the election. There's no evidence whatsoever. It is completely unsubstantiated. And that rhetoric goaded conservatives into doing what they did at the Capitol. On the 6th.
So you don't think rhetoric of saying that Trump stole the election and that it was all the Russians that did it, which I do not agree. I don't think it was all.
I don't think it was all the Russians, but I think they
had a massive influence, though.
Cause riots and
Indy, thanks for the tier 1.
Disorder, which it did. I was there. I was at the riots that occurred and destroyed massive areas of D.C. when Trump went into office on his inauguration. And surprisingly,
I don't know if the riots were specifically about the fucking.
I don't have with it.
The bombs.
But the difference is that the left was right.
Other stuff.
I don't have a problem.
I don't remember those riots, to be completely honest.
They were right to destroy DC and destroy people's businesses.
They were right about Russian collusion.
True.
Okay, so why were people banned right away before any investigation had properly taken place? And you know what? It looks like Trump supporters were right that there was some form of rigging as well, which is with CNN propaganda.
Wait, rigging?
That's not what rigging is. We're talking about collusion, not rigging. So when it comes to nobody argued the election was rigged.
The Russians stole the election.
Nobody with any credibility argued that the Russians hacked into the election, like for sure. Nobody argued that. There were like random people on Twitter and Facebook, but we're talking about something that was confirmed by an investigation by the government. And something with no evidence.
There is an inconsistent application of the TOS, and we know that. They say they ban people for talking about people stealing elections when they are, and they say they ban people when they talk about starting violence. Let's look at a more solid example here instead of arguing the nuances of the Mueller report. Colin Kaepernick directly supported a revolution and violence against the government and has not been banned from Twitter. So you can agree with his support of that revolution, you can agree with his support of that violence, but that still points out what I'm saying here, which is there is an inconsistent application of the TOS.
Do I think Xanderhal's doing well? Not really.
So Colin Kaepernick's statement was, when civility leads to death, revolting is the only logical reaction. He said on Instagram and Twitter, the cries for peace police will rain down, and when they do, they will land on deaf ears because your violence has brought this resistance. Wait.
That's almost identical to what Trump was saying.
That's not even close to what Trump was saying.
Trump was saying, well, the only thing is he's directly
one was a lie, one was a
like
statement
that.
of
Trump was saying, this
about.
is what happens
Oh my God. Okay,
when you rig an election. And once again, people would disagree that civility leads to death, and people would disagree with Trump that the election was rigged.
Wait, so you think that him saying that people fighting for civil rights and Trump lying about the election being stolen because he's salty, and then those people proceeding to go to the Capitol,
I can't do this for much
and
longer.
try to
This
break
is painful.
in, which, by the way, they're all getting arrested. Their
I
identities are being
just
collected.
don't want to
They're being
anymore.
It's
arrested.
crazy to me that they're
Do you think
focusing
these are
on that while
comparable?
there's current rioting going on in Portland. And
Of course they're focusing on that.
People who got,
It was an insurrection
who have been murdered.
attempt.
People who have taken over dozens of federal buildings over the last year, who created their own autonomous radical zone called Chaz, in which multiple people died, and they're not searching for any of those people. I'm saying everyone should be found out who led to the death of people who tried to take over federal buildings. Everyone, not just one side.
Imagine thinking that somebody who stormed the Capitol building and could have had access to files on Nancy Pelosi's desk is the same national security priority as somebody in the middle of fucking California who acquired nothing of security importance.
It sounds to me like you're saying only one side should be arrested for doing that. And the point here is people are going to disagree with Trump's statements and cause and find them non-factual at all, and people are going to disagree with Kaepernick's cause and find them non-factual at all. And who knows? We're watching the case right now. You understand, and he may walk. And
you understand that the vast majority of these BLM protests, 93%, have been completely peaceful? That this is even close to Trump.
Gosh. And guess what? 99% of Trump rallies have been peaceful. Like, why are you trying to excuse the violence?
Because I'm talking about a specific occurrence.
I'm not the one that's trying to excuse trying to excuse what happened at the Capitol. Most Trump rallies are peaceful. You're the one trying to excuse the BLM violence.
Because I'm talking about a very specific riot that happened, an attempt to break into our Capitol, and there were people there that clearly had the intention to kill or kidnap government officials, people that are elected officials, and you're trying to paint it as though BLM is this violent movement. It seems that way, at least. I feel like it's a reasonable way to interpret it.
Was there not literally an assassination of a Patriot Prayer member by a Black Lives Matter member with a tattoo of BLM on his neck?
Black Lives Matter member? He was part of the ILC. What does that even mean? What the fuck do you mean by member?
Do you think this is even clear? What is up with the whataboutism?
Member. What does that mean? You can't be a member. What does that mean?
I am saying that is wrong, and they shouldn't have done that, and they should have been arrested for that. The only thing happening here is you are not acknowledging the radicalism, the actual fucking terrorism and murder of individuals by Black Lives Matter, the taking over of federal buildings by Black Lives Matter, the literal autonomous zone created by radicals in which multiple people died.
I am a hardcore Black Lives Matter member of the Black Lives Matter organization.
Radicalism on my side and said it was wrong.
We shall revolt at 2 a.m. tomorrow morning.
I don't know much about the Chaz thing. I think it was like pretty LARPy and insubstantial, and I'm not a big fan of it.
It's already happened.
And I think that rioting typically is at best it's bad optics, and at worst it's probably not good because depending on where you're rioting.
What about murdering people? What about the
probably not good
man who was murdered?
Not good.
Probably not good.
No, not a fan of it. No, not very.
Okay.
Don't think highly of it.
Then we agree.
Okay. So you don't. We agree that
I don't know if you do.
It is not comparable what Colin Kaepernick said to what Trump did when he was rallying his fan base to attack the Capitol.
I think both caused radicalism and violence, and both should be condemned. But I don't necessarily think either of them should be banned from Twitter. That's the only disagreement here, is that you're being inconsistent and I'm being consistent.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I've been pretty consistent, but all right. How have I been inconsistent?
In both instances, Trump rallied. I think it's questionable whether Trump rallied up people. I don't think he rallied up people to go and cause an insurrection. That's one interpretation of his tweet, saying he potentially defended it by saying this is what happens. But he certainly wasn't telling people to go do it. And he tweeted out after, be peaceful and go home. Whereas Colin Kaepernick has actively called for a revolution and actively called for violence. That's the difference between these tweets. And I'm not even saying Kaepernick should be banned or taken off Twitter. If they actually followed their TOS, he would. But you are trying to argue that somehow
Xander's not. Xander, please.
That has led to
because
murder,
Kaepernick
that has led to
hasn't.
people's shops being
So
burned down,
for
that has
starters,
led to mass riots
Colin
for years.
Kaepernick.
You're excusing it.
Colin Kaepernick isn't the president, for one. Two, from my understanding, Colin Kaepernick
He still
didn't
has
tweet it
mass
out.
amount of power over people and their opinions, apparently more than the president himself, because he didn't get banned from Twitter, whereas the president has lost his voice on
That doesn't mean he has more power. It doesn't mean he's less
The president
notable
had
than Trump. That doesn't mean he has more
TOS
power.
protections for years. He didn't get banned until right before he
And
left
still got banned
office.
off everything.
Yes, after he
And
got out of
still got
office because he
banned
kept
off
on breaking
everything.
TOS,
For
and they
doing
didn't ban him.
less, For doing less than what
They
Colin
voluntarily,
Kaepernick has done, which Colin
Twitter
Kaepernick
voluntarily
Oh my
didn't
God.
ban Trump for breaking TOS.
Plus, Colin Kaepernick lost his job. He lost his fucking job.
Literally told
I
his fan base
can't.
to go home in peace. Kaepernick has not done that
Trump
once.
said
He has
you are.
not once told
Trump
people
said, "I
not
love
to
you.
riot.
You're
He
very
has not once
special,
told
but this
people-
is what you all need to go home. You're very special. You're my beautiful little pog champs. But this is what happens when you steal the election from me." By the way,
So the difference, right? So the difference between the Trump tweet is Trump said, "This is what happens, but you guys should still go home and not do this," and Kaepernick just said, "Cause violence."
sure. If Colin
That's the difference.
Kaepernick got banned, I probably wouldn't really care. But to be completely honest with
so
you,
you
I don't think
agree
he's
with
even
me.
close. Do you think they're comparable? Do you think they're comparable?
No, I don't. I think Kaepernick's
Okay.
is way worse
Why?
because he's calling for violence, whereas Trump was at worst
Wait,
maybe excusing it. At worst, whereas Colin Kaepernick is actively calling.
Are you a consequentialist?
What does this have to do?
A consequentialist is somebody who
not,
judges like how bad something is based on the outcome of doing that thing.
give me the context for it. In this
Okay.
case.
So what Trump did resulted in a full-scale attack on my capital in an attempt for an
I'm
insurrection.
sorry, but if you think those LARPers were actually going to take over the Capitol, it's.
What do you?
Continue.
When I say take over,
I
they
don't-
broke in. They got in. They were
full-scale
looking
attack.
for. Yes, they were there with handcuffs. They were looking to kidnap public officials. There is
That's a
security
full-scale
cam
attack. What
footage.
a year of rioting and taking over.
That's the
public
closest.
buildings.
That is the closest that's the closest the Confederacy ever got to taking over the government, considering it was the first time in history that a Confederate flag flew in the American Capitol. So there's that. There's also security cam footage
You're giving
of
these LARPers
security
way too
guards.
much credit. It's actually crazy.
There's security footage of the vice president
People
having to
are
run
dead.
down a hallway because a bunch of the rioters came around a corner and they almost got him.
Someone sniffed AOC's shoes. No one was trying.
They had to evacuate it.
People
I think
are
what they
dead.
did was wrong,
The police had
The
to
cops
shoot
had
them.
to turn.
4 people
If
died.
The cops
if there's even
turned Mitt Romney around because he was walking towards where all they were. What do you
We're going to
mean?
take over the government and start, I don't know, their wave the
Okay,
MAGA
then
flag
we'll never
and
complain
start passing
about somebody
laws
ever
for-
dying at a riot again or
Okay,
anybody's property being destroyed because at the end of the day, who
That, like
cares?
a bunch of BLM protesters, like what is it, 8%, 7% of them. If you think that, or no, not even. How many percentage of them are peaceful? Let me just let me make sure. 93%. So if you think that 6% of these protests, if you think that 6% of these LARPers that are actually causing violence at these protests are going to really harm the country, then I guess you're taking it too seriously too. Because if we're going to apply it, then we might as well apply it equally. I take a full-scale
When
attack
did
on our
I say-
capital
when did
way
I
more
say that
seriously.
These LARPers wouldn't harm the country. I said they weren't going to take over the government. I think they did harm to the country as much as I think BLM have.
Sorry,
done
7%.
significant
As
harm.
much as
You love
BLM?
this very neat trick
How can
of
you think that
responding to
somebody
things I've never
charging the
said.
Capitol
debate tactics.
and almost
Entire debate.
getting the
But,
president while chanting "Hang
yes,
Mike
no, I
Pence"
think
did as
both
much
parties, and
damage
I've been consistent
as
on this the
somebody
entire time,
burning
but I
down a
think
Waffle
the degree of
House?
Sustained protests and violence by BLM has added up to significantly more
You've-
than the insurrectionists who just got way more media attention.
I feel like you've deliberately tried to downplay the effects of what the insurrectionaries at the Capitol did by calling them LARPers and saying they didn't even get close to
You're projecting.
anybody.
You used the word LARP first, mate. You're the one who called called the people who made Chaz LARPers, and that's when
Yeah.
I started using the word LARP. You are projecting all of the things
They're
you are doing
LARPers,
and all
but
of
you're
the
trying
stuff
to
you're doing.
downplay what they did.
So when I use the word LARP, I'm downplaying. But when you use the word LARP,
I don't.
to
Why
describe
are you
people
focusing
creating
on the
an
word
autonomous
LARP?
zone
I am
against multiple
dying.
I know.
people,
Listen, Lauren.
you're
I know
not
LARP is a
downplaying
funny
it?
word. I know LARP is a funny word. It's fun to say. I'm not talking about them being LARPers. I'm not lasering on you calling those people LARPers. We're talking about what they actually did and what they intended to go there to do, and four people died as well. The Capitol security had to shoot people because they were about to get
pay you
in
to watch
an
something
area
else.
of the building
It's
where there
probably
were
almost
elected
over. They've been
officials,
doing
and
this for
those
over
people
2
were
hours
there.
now. It
There were
has to
people
end soon.
out there with
It has
guillotines
to.
and gallows there saying to cut off Mike Pence's head. There were people searching around offices trying to take information from elected officials' laptops. There were people there with handcuffs looking to kidnap. Why
Zip
else do they
ties.
have handcuffs? Looking
They
to
found zip
kidnap,
ties while they were there.
Elected officials. I think it's pretty different. Both are bad, but pretty different than rioting in the streets. Pretty different.
Okay, so once again, you have glossed over. I still have not once tried to excuse the actions at the Capitol. I think that your number is potentially wrong because there were people who died of an overdose. They claimed a cop was killed by rioters who actually wasn't, and had to be corrected. This had to be corrected later by the media.
Wait,
once
we
again,
don't
I still
have.
have never
Wait, no,
said
no,
that
no,
that
no,
was
no, no, no.
okay.
Don't let her get away with that. Don't let her get away with that. That is not proven.
That somehow that is different or on some mass different scale than all of the rioting that has gone on sustained for over a year, that has taken over multiple federal buildings, led to the deaths of significantly more
93%
people.
of the protests have been peaceful.
The medical
I condemn
examiner's
the
office
rioting. I
deemed
don't think
Babbitt's
it's good.
death
99%
a
of
homicide.
Trump rallies
He didn't
have been
just
peaceful.
We're not
take heroin
talking
and
about
die.
Trump rallies. You're
And
the
I'm
one that
not
brought up the
talking about-
comparison. I'm talking
Okay,
about a
so-
very specific event, and you're trying to draw a comparison between a
And I'm
ex-football
and
player.
I'm talking about very specific events too. I'm talking about rioting that has been going on.
The rioting is bad, and I
all
don't
over the
support
country.
it. The rioting is bad, and I don't support it.
Well, why are you trying to say it's
Because you're
somehow
trying to.
better
You
than
are.
what happened at the Capitol when
It is.
multiple people
I'm not
died,
saying it's
people were
better. I'm saying it's
assassinated
not as
deliberately.
bad. I'm saying
So
it wasn't.
It's not as bad to assassinate people, to lead to multiple deaths.
Homicide
to,
literally means not suicide, not
kill-
extended
I'm not
examining language.
talking-
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
If
not
it was
talking about
ruled
the
a
one- you're
homicide,
talking-
then it was not him
Why do you
fucking
keep going-
taking drugs to
so
die.
You're switching
I argue
around.
that
You're
is
switching
actually
around from
better
riots
to
to
attack
a very
federal
particular.
building that at least is going to be repaired with the.
Did Xanderhal copy the
They were
Destiny
trying
webcode?
to-
I have no
they were
clue.
trying to
I'm
kill
not up to
businesses.
date on that.
They were trying to kill people,
And
by the way,
BLM rioters successfully killed people.
and I don't support that. Whenever it happens,
And
I don't support it.
people
But
trying
why
to
do you
kill
keep
people
going?
either. You're
But
trying to
how?
argue
Why
against
is it?
points I'm not making.
Why is it that you keep on bringing up BLM riots, and then when I go back to the Capitol, then you bring up the instance where like they assassinated one guy, which is horrible, and I don't support it. But you keep on trying to bring up that one instance, and I guess ostensibly try to connect it back to Colin
Wait,
Kaepernick,
she's gonna say
when
this
the
whole
reason
thing
for
is
the
one
riot
instance.
was
This
very
never happens on
specifically
conservative
because
circles.
Trump
That would be
kept
the
on
response
saying
she
the
should
election
give.
was stolen, and they
It would be
wanted to
tactically
punish
beneficial for her.
our government
If she gives that,
officials
it's
for
gonna be
not
hard for
keeping
Xanderhal to
Trump
get
in
around that.
office. Why do you think that these are comparable in terms of who holds the responsibility for what? Because that's what this argument was about.
Because you've got a bunch of Black Lives Matter rioters saying
Nope, she didn't do it.
To
Good for Xander.
hold the government accountable
Good for
as
Xander.
well.
Damn.
With literal, I've seen guillotines with Trump's head in them. Like, you're making these comparisons about
Where were those
rioters that were at
guillotines?
the Capitol when it has happened the other way around a million times and sustained for over a year.
She
Where were
almost
those
made the point.
guillotines?
She almost made the
Okay,
point.
what we're arguing here, people can post pictures. There have been guillotines in the streets with Trump's head.
Wait, don't
Where,
use
though?
Dylan with my
Not-
own cringe face.
Not
You
at
don't-
the Capitol.
What did I do?
While hundreds of people, thousands of people are trying to break in and are specifically out to capture and behead that
Okay, so
particular elected representative.
Somehow it's worse if you take over a building with Nancy Pelosi in it than if you terrorize and take over some poor black person's shop. You think it's worse just because fucking Nancy Pelosi is in the building, but it's
We're
okay
talking
if
about
when it comes to
which
national
figure-
stability, the
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 impact is
reason why
much,
this argument
much
happened,
worse
I think they're both
than
wrong.
some
Yes, the
random
reason why this
fucking
conversation
Waffle
came
House.
up is because you brought up Colin Kaepernick's quote. I brought up Trump's quotes.
The conversation we're actually having is whether it's okay to incite rebellion or not. I think it's wrong. Do you think it's wrong in any instance?
incite
the government
rebellion?
is literally, unless you can prove
In
that
any
the
instance, I
government
mean,
is
it
tyrannically,
depends.
Committing genocide and severely oppressive and all these things, and peaceful democracy is not an option, and you have gone past those points of being able to have civil debate and past those points of being able to, enact change in your communities, I do not think it's okay to incite civil rebellion, whether you're Colin Kaepernick or Donald Trump. What do you think?
Neither are okay, but the responsibility or how comparable what Colin Kaepernick did to Donald Trump, the comparison there is not even close in terms of the outcome and how harmful it is.
Once
and
again,
the intention.
That's not even the question here. The question is whether Twitter applies the TOS appropriately and whether it treats people who incite rebellion with the same treatment, and they don't. And I've proven that. And you're just arguing.
The reason why Twitter didn't ban Colin Kaepernick is besides being like I don't even think there's that much attention on him anymore. Like he's not even nearly as popular and well known and being listened to as much as he was back in like 2018.
You're allowed to violate the TOS.
It's complicated.
You're asking why he wasn't banned. Should I ask you why insert lefty here that called for this like 100 follower account didn't get banned? Like, of course he broke.
I'm not the one arguing that the TOS is perfect. I'm the one arguing it's imperfect.
I'm not arguing that it's perfect either. Then
you're arguing that it's been applied fairly.
No, I'm not. I've never said once that the TOS is applied fairly.
So we agree. Okay, so we agree then.
Okay.
We're arguing over nothing. I think that the problem with Twitter and Facebook and YouTube giving them this much power over people's speech. First of all, I don't think private companies should have this much power over the discourse in the country. And second of all, I don't think they apply the TOS properly and they have bias. That's what the discussion was, and that's we agree on it apparently.
Okay, if we agree on that what Trump did was deliberate and was deserving of being banned, and what Colin Kaepernick did was probably something that Twitch could logically ban.
Who do you think would be better equipped to debate Lauren Sothern?
Then I don't think we disagree, right?
I don't know, because they were supposed to debate on the book, and I don't know if anybody could do well against Lauren Sothern where she at any point could just pivot to the book.
Yeah, I like the book. The book's pretty good.
Thank you. All right. Like if you guys want to pick it up for your kids, you can get it on Amazon.
There it is.
The ABCs of Morality. It's got a positive review from Xanderhal. I think I'm going to add a review on the back that says drops mad bars. And we might just change X's for Xanderhal in a lefty edition we release.
If that actually happens, I'm going to buy it. I will buy a lefty edition, or just in one single copy where X is for Xanderhal. I will buy it. Okay.
All right.
I'll buy a second copy.
I could actually make that happen, but I'll send you a copy as a thank you for having a fun little debate with me. Are there any? How long has it been?
Would I interview Xan about this debate?
It's been 2 hours. I think.
I would, but I don't know if Xan wants to talk to me about it.
You want to bring up, because I did have a few.
If you guys can make him want to talk to me about it, then sure.
But I can stay to.
I guess the final meme would be, do you vape?
I did.
Oh, you did.
I'm gonna.
This is irresponsible platforming. It's still not irresponsible platforming due to the fact that Lauren is so much bigger than Xan.
Life of me, But yeah, I started vaping to try to mitigate that, and since then have managed to mostly.
Still, if you perform bad enough, then it could be.
I did hear you in the preamble to this that you wanted me to do a little vape, and unfortunately I don't have a vape on me, so you're just gonna have to vape one out for me.
Alrighty, I appreciate the honesty. I was curious. My chat wants you to say a phrase. Would you say trans rights?
Oh no. I think trans people should have the same rights as anyone else.
Wait, just say trans rights then. Just say it.
All right, that's.
This is what equal opportunity is.
You just
everyone gets treated the same and judged on the same.
You get nothing out of this.
But can you say trans rights though? People want to hear the exact sentence.
Okay, well, what does this mean on a larger scale? Because if it just means they have the same rights as everyone else, then trans rights, my dudes.
All right.
Can you say white rights, Xanderhal? Do white people have rights?
Oh, boy.
I love white people, okay? I love white people. White rights, of course. I think everybody deserves rights.
Oh, God damn it, Xander.
I'm glad we agree. Look at this. This ended up being a really lovely agreement with some friendly spats here and there.
Alrighty. Did you have a fun time?
Oh, God.
I did. I had a good time. If you ever want to debate or chat about anything else, I'd be happy to.
Alrighty, well, hopefully you have a good night. I appreciate you coming on, and maybe you can come on in the future for, I don't know, maybe we can do like a set topic or something, like the trans issue stuff. We can talk about that more specifically if you ever want to come on again. And yeah, have a good one.
Jesus Christ.
Bye.
Oh wait, I did mean to tell her to talk to Bosch. I'll tell her in DMs. I feel like I did pretty well. I think even to her audience, I probably did pretty well. My goal there, mainly, is like I knew I couldn't just go in and be like, so you did this, this, and this. One thing that I probably should have looked out for, and I feel like I still did pretty well with it, is how many anecdotes she brings up. Tim Pool does this too, where he'll bring up like a shit ton of anecdotes of things that, like, when you look into it after the.
Okay. Oh my god. What was his chat saying? Did his chat agree that he did well? What do you guys think? Five out of 10? Yeah, 5 out of 10. Zan says yes? What do you mean Zan says yes? Said message him? There, I messaged him. I sent him a DM. If he wants to talk to me, I can call him. I'll talk to him about it. The consensus is no? Ooh, I messaged him. It's up to him. Ooh, someone sent me a message on Tinder. That guy's cute. Oh, there is. Hey, Xander.
Dylan Burns, my boy. How did I do?
So is that new haircut?
You think I did badly?
I give you like a 5 out of 10, if you want me to be brutally honest.
Why is that?
Well, the problem I would have is it feels like due to the premise of the topic being based off the book, she always had like a trump card, like in her back pocket, right? Where at any point, like for example, the thing where you did best was puberty blockers, because like 100%, like puberty blockers is a topic where like the left, just by like having gone through this material a million times online, we got like all the cards in our hand, right? We know exactly what to say. I hosted the Hippie Dippy Championship between John Burke, Rob, Vosh. Vosh did the same thing, quoted the studies they would say beforehand. You knew all the problems with the study beforehand. Really good. The problem was she would say all this information, right? She would say a million things. Then you would be like, well, this is why this is wrong. And she would never really need to respond. She could be like, wait a second, well, I'm here for the book, and there's no trans stuff in the book, which it seemed like a lot of it, she was right about kind of the reaching. It felt like a lot of it was like the censorship or the thing like all the definitions felt a little bit like reaching. Like there was nothing in the book about trans people as far as I'm aware when it came to masculinity and femininity. And then she did the Uno reverse card where she was like, are you telling me that that men cis men can't be feminine? It was like, oh fuck. So I think she just
I felt like I handled that one well. That reverse card, I feel like I did well with that.
Did okay, but the fact that you were on the back foot to begin with, in an area where you were supposed to be the one pressuring on the book, is a problem, right? Like if you're here to like, here's why your book is wrong, and she even has enough time to put you on the back foot to answer those questions, it feels a little weird, you know?
Well, the debate wasn't supposed to be about whether or not the book was wrong. The debate was supposed to be about the like political implications of what she was saying. She advertises a book to combat the woke lefty narrative.
Like in the book, like so like, can I ask you a question? You said you would debate her on the book before reading the book?
No, that's not what happened at all. I don't know why she said that. Very deliberately, what I said was that I was going to like go over a few pages of the book on stream for a segment. And then she ended up noticing that and then quote tweeting me and saying, here's one of the pages. And I said, I'd buy the book and review it on stream if you agree to come on and talk to me afterwards and have a discussion about the political stuff in the book. And she said, you have a deal. And then I read the book and then we came to an agreement on it.
Okay.
And that's how the debate happened.
To do a better review, can we just go through the letters again quick? Because I've already forgotten like all the letters. What was the first letter you brought up to her?
Let me bring it up. The first one was equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity. And so basically then it got to like a thing about it seemed like every time like you would say it and like on his face all these things seemed perfectly fine. And I don't think anybody would read any of these things and have a problem with it. And so what you like ended up doing was like, well, what did you think about when writing this? And then you kind of like sprung from there because you wanted to talk about the author, right? Because you believe the beliefs of the author is important. But the thing is, it's kind of hard to debate off of that when the content of the book is so really unobjectionable. A lot of the books felt unobjectionable to me. Like,
have you read it?
I haven't read it, but the things that you brought up, which seem to be the problematic ones, seem to be perfectly like fine. Most of it.
Okay, so I talked to like Vosh and Demon Mama about how to go about this before I did it. The way that I went about it was, or the way that I wanted to go about it, and I feel like I did a pretty good job of that, is I would read one of the pages and I would ask, can you elaborate on that? Or what were you thinking when you said this? And then I would ask her about like, okay, so do you believe that we live in like an equal society and that yada yada? And she's the one that brought up things like affirmative action, what have you. And that led into the topics that we actually would debate over. And that was the point of the discussion, from my understanding. That was my entire goal.
So your goal was to kind of use the book as a jumping off point to debate Lauren on the things she believes, right?
Yeah, based on like what it's referencing in the book, because it's pretty obvious that the book is referencing the idea that like gender is this, there is male and masculinity and femininity. This is what it means, and that's the point. That's what we were jumping off of. Yeah,
I mean, the thing is, do you think that topic had to do with trans people? Do you think that passage had to do with trans people?
Well,
like legitimately, or do you think it had to do with femininity and like masculinity, as in like men should behave this way and women should behave this way?
So the way that I went about it, here, we'll go over the masculinity one.
Like that one, I would say that is the one that I would say is actually objectable. I was waiting for you to say, well, what is femininity? What is masculinity? You know?
Yeah, but then she added the little bit on the end that says, not all men are masculine. That's also okay at the end. So what I asked her was, so have you like changed your opinion on like gender nonconforming people, or what is your take on that?
That's the thing, because it felt like someone could be like masculine and still a woman, right? Someone can be feminine and still a man. So the thing is, none of that really had to do. I don't understand how that has to do with trans people. Maybe I'm just ignorant, but I just don't understand what that specifically has to do with trans people.
I feel like it applies fairly well to gender nonconformity broadly, right?
Gender nonconformity. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, Riley Grace in chat says, I'll be fair and say this really sounded like it was hinting at trans people. I guess that's the main thing that I guess this is where I start on the back foot, is the fact that I know who Lauren Sothern is. I know what she believes, and I have a pretty good idea of like the basic ideas that she's referencing in this book when she brings up a specific topic, right? Like I know what she means when she says censorship, right? I know what she's referencing. Obviously, we had a big argument about it, like Twitter and shit like that. And we could have gone way into the censorship thing if we wanted to. I could have brought up like, wait, censorship is never okay. And then I'd bring up like a bunch of examples where it is okay. And she's like, well, okay, maybe sometimes it's okay, but you know, yeah. And it would just be like really back and forth in circles. I actually think where that ended up going, with her trying to downplay the insurrection as being and what Trump did being comparable to like Democratic voters on Twitter and Facebook saying that the election was hacked, compared to like
you did great when it came to the election. You did really good. I guess for me it felt like the start on the first topic, puberty blockers, was good, and the mid part was weaker, and the end part was great. I think that would probably be my consensus. I just think the middle part, because I felt like a lot of it, like, because at the beginning she said you'd be reaching, and so for a lot of people watching it, what they're gonna see is that her talking about like what was the like looking at people equally and all these things, and into her saying right off the bat you're gonna be reaching. That's how people are gonna view it, that you are reaching from this point, right? That somehow we went from people talking about equality, or people talking about just like it's okay for people to be masculine this or that way, and then reaching to these other topics. And while even if it is buried in there, I think the problem is going to be that that's how it's going to be viewed from a wider public. And it depends on like when you talk about like platforming or like comic and people like Lauren Sothern, how it's going to be viewed is like super important.
I think That's possible, and I think at least from my at least because I was looking at chat the whole time. Every time I made an argument or heard her argument, I checked over at chat. One annoying thing that chat kept doing.
Can I ask you a question?
Were
Were you looking at your own chat or were you looking at other people's chats?
I was
Because what I
looking
do
at
a lot of times is I look at other people's chats when I'm having debates because I want to see how
Lauren
communities
Sothern
that aren't
doesn't
like. Fuck, I should have given you my chat. Well, don't worry about
Yeah.
it. My
Yeah,
chat's always
but-
based because they listen to me. You know.
I feel like a lot of people might interpret her being unwilling to defend a lot of the points that she holds as kind of slippery, because like I would bring up an issue that everybody knows what her opinion is on it, even her own supporters, and she didn't seem willing to defend those positions.
Yeah, I think another thing that was really difficult is during the beginning, she would say like 100 things, right? And you would be able, you would start saying one thing, and then immediately she'd jump on you. And I think one thing, and I mean, this is a criticism I make of myself all the time, is assertiveness. To be like, wait, you just said all these things, right? We're already on this one point. Let's go point by point by point. Because if you don't, then you're gonna like miss 20 points that haven't been addressed that just seep into people's heads, and you haven't addressed those points. I have to deal with that all the time as on Hippy Dippy.
I could have muted her. Maybe muting her would have probably been really bad optics.
No.
Right?
It would have been bad optics to mute her, but you should have just made like wait a second, like I would like to finish my points. You just talked for a ton. Let me finish my thing, and then we can dissect each other's stuff. Say something like that, because then if she objects to that, then it's going to be like, huh, that's kind of weird that you're objecting to something like that. I mean, you did just get to say all those things, and then it's bad optics on her part, right? But if you like start muting people or be like, shut the fuck up or something, then you're in a position where they're like, yo, she just came onto your platform to talk about this book, and now you're asking her questions, and she can't even talk on it. That's how people are going to view it. So you gotta be very specific about what you're trying to do.
I feel like in the beginning it took me a hot minute to realize like, okay, she's going to gish gallop forever. So whenever she would go on for like 5 minutes about
something, she knows how to talk.
That's when I got to the point where I started interrupting her. Was a little bit later on. Like, okay. Like, I get it. Let's move on.
Look, I all I can tell from this is she most certainly recorded for her own audiobook. She was most certainly, if she can talk for that long, then she most certainly was a person that did the audio for a book. So, okay. So the first one was, what was the first one again?
Equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity. And that's when it kind of slid into affirmative action. Now, I'm trying to remember, was it you who brought up affirmative action and stuff with equality? Was it her that brought up affirmative action? Okay. If I think I must have remembered that wrong. If she was the one who brought it up, then you need to take the opportunity. Because the thing is, if you're just debating the content of the book, like it's basically almost non-debatable, because it's like really milquetoast, and I doubt anybody's gonna hear like treat people equally, censorship bad, don't do groupthink, right? And nobody is gonna hear those like sentiments on their face value and like think they're bad. Like for example, like PragerU does this thing for kids, like little video documentary series. And none of it's like objectionable on its face, but when you know what it's connected to, that is objectionable. So I guess you needed to like basically let her kind of like slip up before you could do anything. So a lot of this was dependent on her like being the person to drag into that conversation. Because if you're the person that pushes it there, when she eventually says, which she always will, wait, we're supposed to talk about the book, it's going to look a lot more justifiable.
Okay, I think I did fairly well with that one, because she brought up affirmative action, and I was like, well, usually when I think about people being not having equal opportunity, right, I think of issues that are way more quantifiable than, and I condemned affirmative action because there's a lot of other issues with affirmative action that I listed before during the debate. Like I think it's like well-off white women tend to benefit from it the most. More so than like impoverished people of color. And then I ended up moving into like issues that
before I lose this, I'm gonna lose this quick. I'm sorry to stop you. When the patriotism thing with the N-word, I think a much better response than, well, anybody can be patriotic for whatever perspective, because then it's hard for you to call something else unpatriotic. A better thing would have been, well, the thing is, I think racism is an unpatriotic thing, because I think it fights against the American ideal of all men are not created equal. I think that would have been a better response to it.
That is actually pretty good. Yeah, that is a good response. I didn't think of that. What I ended up saying was that patriotism and what is patriotic is subjective. Yeah.
But then if that's subjective, then you can't. It's hard for you to debate like Nazis aren't patriotic, Confederate sympathizers aren't patriotic, because from their perspective they'll say, "Well, I believe state rights is the way to go," or like, "Well, I believe America's based on the white race." You need to like, I think basing like patriotism and say patriotism is based on certain American ideals is the way to go. And so what you should have said is to burning the American flag when there are people trying to ban a liberty can be seen as a symbol of rejection, as people trying to constrain your individuality and your ability to practice your free speech. So when laws restrict freedom, you need to practice that freedom. Example of that, and this would have been a great way to pivot into making her have to possibly defend Trump, when Trump went on the campaign trail and said we should throw people in prison for burning the American flag. I think something like that would have been maybe like a good way to go about it. But being able to say that burning the American flag is patriotic is an extremely difficult position to defend for obvious reasons.
I think I've actually found it's like a fairly easy position to defend, but maybe not from the perspective of someone watching. I think one of the I was like hesitant to bring up Trump up until the end when we talked about the election, because I think she brought it up actually. Because from what I'd heard like earlier on, she said that when we talked about the groupthink thing, she said that she thinks people get involved with MAGA and they have no good reason for it. And I was like, okay, maybe she's off the Trump train. So I feel like I guess what I was thinking during the debate, that trying to get her on supporting Trump would have been a dead end, because she would probably just say, "Oh, I'm not on the Trump train."
Yeah. Here's there's some things that like are very hard to like make sound patriotic. Like for example, one of the things that I always talk about, which is one of the positions that I guess are one of the more controversial things I believe, is I do believe that tearing down Confederate statues is seen as a patriotic thing, and not for the initial reason people think, because, well, they're against America. My thing is, when those things were put up as part of a campaign of structural racism and oppression, one of the great patriotic writers, Henry David Thoreau, who was not only a great novelist but also a political thinker, wrote a thing called Civil Disobedience in 1849. And this is also the justification I use for all acts of civil disobedience will break the law, where he said that when injustice becomes too great, the only place for a just man is in prison, and that when injustice becomes too great, you have to act as a counter friction to injustice, and acting outside the law to do that is the only way you can sometimes act as a counter friction to injustice. And I think by using that great known patriotic writer, citing that historical piece and like basing it in things like that, which puts people in a place where they have to like say, "Oh, Thoreau is very he was just some libcuck," puts people in a very difficult position, you know? So I think like when you make those arguments that are going to be very shocking to somebody, like burning the American flag is pro-America, like most people immediately going to say no. You need to have like something in there to like hit it, besides like, patriotism is subjective, because then ultimately how that'll be used is, well, the Nazis are patriotic. Well, then everyone's patriotic. Every act could be considered patriotic because patriotism is subjective.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah, focus more on like the idea of defending like American
what is American ideals exactly.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What else do you have?
What was the second one, the second letter?
G is for
I was really happy you never said N, because I was scared about that.
No, N was like I
thought you're gonna get tactical up in here. G for groupthink. Groupthink, that one seemed that was the one I was the most concerned with, because that one seemed the most unobjectionable. It seemed the most like, hey, just don't do whatever your parents whatever society tells you, or just don't follow the leader. Like, think for yourself. Like, that's really like unobjectionable. So immediately when I read it out, I was like, oh fuck, this is how is this gonna be? Like, how is this gonna go? And like, yeah, it was, I guess, like the groupthink one. What were you thinking when you chose that? Because that one seemed like the most unobjectable.
I think I did pretty good with that one, because she immediately took it to, I think we're getting people too involved in politics. And I said, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that political, what's the word for it? Not disenfranchisement. I can't remember what the word was that I used at the time. Disaffection. I think that being disaffected about politics is really bad. And then she tried to defend people being disaffected by politics, and then kept on bringing up these things that she kept having to bite the pit like a.
Where's the line though between that and groupthink? Where's the line? I don't, because if you bring this up as a problem, where's the line?
That's where she pivoted it to. She pivoted it to, I just think that people are just following into politics because everybody else is. And I was like, yeah, sure, there's plenty of people that get into politics for the wrong reasons, but
I guess like for a lot of these, like initially when you read them, like everybody's going to see it as like that's a completely unobjectable thing. And the rocky part is going to be getting from that to something that's actually objectable, because and the problem is always going to be when the source material feels so unobjectable, like just don't jump off a bridge because everyone else did. She can always just pivot back, and which she did multiple times. Most obviously when she was under the most heat under puberty blockers, and she pivoted out. Like I never mentioned trans people in the book. So I guess that since that one was just the most unobjectable to me, it was just a rocky start, because I'm like, how the fuck are we going to find something wrong with what she just said? It'd be like if somebody said, don't steal. And then you said, what did you think about when writing this? And someone said, well, I'm just sick of all the minority groups looting. And then you'd be like, okay, well, that's a new thing. But then if you pivot back to the source material, like it's unobjectionable. But then it's when the original person's like beliefs are like lit up, that's the problem. So it's that beginning part that's going to be really rocky.
Yeah, I feel like something I did, and I did this deliberately, was I feel like going into every one of those, I gave her the ability to just say, no, I mean, I don't have an issue with this, right? Or no, I don't really have like an opinion on that, or no, that's not what this meant. Like with the groupthink thing, she's the one that led it to, I think people are doing like the Black Lives Matter things. I was like, okay, I guess now we can talk about political disenfranchisement and Black Lives Matter and people getting into politics, because she led it there. And that's what we were able to debate. And that's what I was hoping for. It's what I was counting on, because on its own, like this was deliberate. On its own, there's nothing
wrong with the book.
In the vacuum.
Yeah.
It's who made the book and the political beliefs of the person who made the book that I want to debate. And I think I lucked out that she was so willing very quickly to.
Can I ask you a question then? Let's say there was a person who wrote a book, and it was about an orange that bullied another orange, right? And like the orange beat him up, and it was really mean, and and the moral of the story was don't bully people, right? But the author, and like that's how everybody reads it. But the author was actually like great, right? Like oh, the white replacement theory, and this orange actually represents the destruction of the white man, and How much does that matter to you when it comes to like these books, if that's not the message that's being translated to audiences?
Sorry, I blanked out for a second because someone messaged me a message from my chat saying that Lauren retweeted and then unretweeted a tweet saying that I was obviously flirting with her.
Wait, what? Damn.
Is that real? Wait.
Yeah, I mean, it was so obvious, Xander. Xander, you need to. You horn dog, calm down, okay? Ow. Okay, you need to calm down.
All right. Okay. Listen,
one of the boys.
I said in my chat that I was banning any creepy messages about Lauren. I hope my mods kept that up.
One of the boys.
Okay, someone said they're getting proof of it. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, no, I think. Can you repeat what you said before?
One of the boys. Okay, no, fuck, what did I say? Oh yeah, the orange story. I did the orange thing.
Yeah. So would the orange story be political with what?
Okay, so let's say the in isolation, the orange story is like just about an orange bullying another orange, but then the author was like some great white replacement thing, right? Who believed in like white people were going to be wiped out by like immigration or whatever. And the story to him was supposed to represent the one orange being bullied was white people and the other orange was immigration or something. Does that really matter if that's not the message being delivered to audiences? Like that's not the thing that they're receiving from that.
No, not really. That's why I said that I rated the book well.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like at the end of the day, if you know what the book is supposed to represent, then obviously that affects you. But that's why I said that I didn't really take issue with the book itself. And that's why I wanted to talk to Lauren about her political beliefs going into the book. Like that's why I kept asking, what did you mean by this? What are you thinking when you wrote this? And that's where she led it into like particular political topics most of the time during the debate.
Okay, but you wouldn't, and we already passed this, but I just wanted to make sure. You did acknowledge that probably when she said, like, you didn't read the book beforehand, you probably should have said, oh, actually, I did. I just reviewed it on stream. You should have said that because I was working off of, and everybody in my chat was working off the idea that you actually didn't read the book challenged
really?
her, and then read the book afterwards to try to find something wrong with it, because that was the narrative she built with like how you were going to reach, and like the narrative made sense with what followed. So if you would have said, actually, I did read it beforehand before doing this, that would have like really helped a lot.
Oh, I don't know. I guess, yeah, I probably should have. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I thought that you didn't read the book, and then after challenging her, then read the book. That's how I and like everybody in my chat like saw it.
Jesus
oh, you
Christ.
just got 500 buckos.
Yeah, Jesus, holy hell. I'll have to get to that one in a minute. Thank you. Oh, fuck. Yeah, no, I think that was probably a mistake. But yeah, I read the entire like exchange that happened. I don't even know why she said that. I said that I asked her if she would come on and talk about it and debate me if I bought the book and read it and reviewed it on stream and made a video. And the video's up on my channel right now of me reviewing the book.
Oh. Huh. So I was about to ask you also, like, how the hell did you get her on? It was that basically you challenged her. She said, if you read it and review it, and then you did it, and she was like, well, guess I gotta fulfill the promise then, huh?
Yeah, that was basically it. Yeah.
Okay. So what was after groupthink?
Groupthink, and then I think we talked about
Patriotism. And that was one that actually she brought up, because I think she came here prepared to talk about that section, and you weren't, and so she wanted to talk about it because she thought it would be something like a lefty would object to, right? Because she had like a dialogue tree for it.
It was one of the things that I wrote down, and I already had like, I think you could see it. I guess if I showed her face, I wish I'd shown her face actually. Because she like, maybe this is actually my fault, because maybe I should have put her camera up on the top, because there were a lot of points where she like leaned back and like you could see in her face that she was getting nervous, and maybe that visual feedback would have made my side look better. But when I brought up the patriotism thing and I like immediately responded, she seemed like really surprised, like she got scared for a second, because I don't think she expected me to be like ready to go at that one, because I didn't bring it up.
I don't know. I it almost felt like to me that like she thought you were gonna bring it up, and so she was prepared for it, because like if I guess from her perspective as someone who isn't a lefty, if she was to read the book and it's like, what would the lefty object to? Patriotism is probably one of the few things that people think of. The left hates America, it's one of those things. And so I think she prepared for it. And then when she saw you didn't choose it, and maybe she also didn't think you'd have like the dialogue tree for it. But I already told you what I think would have been a better response to that when it came to like burning the American flag and whether that's patriotic or not, like in the whole like N-word response, right? Mm-hmm. Which again, very thankful no one ever brought the letter N up.
Yeah, that N was nihilism in the book.
Oh, nihilism.
Yeah,
for children, nihilism.
I didn't want to get into a big like philosophical debate with Lauren Sothern. I don't care about philosophy. Well, I do, but like it's just not something that's fun for me to argue.
It's like, so children, Friedrich Nietzsche was oh god, yeah, that'd be a fun conversation. Yeah. Life is meaningless. You're all gonna die. Mommy's gonna die too, and it doesn't matter. Sun's gonna explode. Fuck you. That would have been a great dialogue with children. Oh, sorry, just made you lose your monetization. Didn't mean to do that.
I lost my monetization a while ago. I think I lost my monetization by having Lauren Sothern in the title.
True. See, the big tech censorship is real.
True. As a matter of fact, we can move on to X.
Move on to made Xership. What was with that, by the way? Censorship doesn't start with an X.
No, it doesn't. But what the fuck else can you rhyme?
What was C?
C?
Yeah.
C was community.
Community. Oh, I guess you wanted to.
That one was completely unobjectable on its own. Like, there's nothing I could have gone through with that one.
Yeah. So censorship. It was basically like, hey, like, don't censor stuff, basically, because you want to have access to things and know what they are, right? It's important. And so the process you went through is nothing censorable, and then you went through the whole like Russia collusion stuff and the which you did really well on Russia collusion, and went to do you think that at all there was like a point where you could have been like, of course, like I don't know if you did say this because I had to walk away a few times. Did you ever say like, okay, well, obviously there's some things that should be censored, like threats of violence online, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And because I came back and you slid over to conspiracy theories about the election being stolen and whether that should be taken offline. And that's when the whole conversation about big tech censorship came into. How do you think you did there?
I think I did pretty good. She seemed to be something that my original plan, my trap card there was going to be, well, what about child porn and what about threats of violence and stuff like that? But then she said,
of course, she was immediately going to throw that off. Yeah.
she even said that I'm sure you could list things that it's okay to censor. So I think I immediately decided to go with, okay, she's ready for that one. So instead of going with that, I'm going to go with like TOS enforcement. I think she might have brought up TOS enforcement. I don't remember exactly because I haven't had time to like.
T is for TOS, terms of service.
Yeah. T is for TOS. It's always bad. Never
Hell
okay
yeah.
with TOS. Now, I think that like you said before, I think the beginning and the end of the debate was the best part, and it just dragged on a little bit in the middle.
Dragged on a little bit in the middle. Okay. Yeah, I would say the middle was probably where you were weakest. Yeah, 100%.
Do you think I should have
core training? More sit-ups.
Yeah, I do leg day and I do arm day, but I didn't do enough core day. How do you
You're
think
like a straw with 2 oranges at each side?
Yeah, how do you think I handled the part with the insurrection at the Capitol and the election being stolen?
I think there's one point you should have brought up, and that was like, I do acknowledge that like a Waffle House being burnt down is important, but I think that the importance of the Capitol into the nation and national security and the information, and you did bring up the data that was at risk. But like how there is just a stark difference between a Waffle House being burnt down and the Capitol being access to, where Mitt Romney had to be turned around by Capitol Police because he was about to walk into the rioters. And I don't think those rioters would have liked Mitt Romney very much, being he was the only Republican that voted for impeachment.
Oh yeah, that was I messed up there because I said Mike Pence had to run around from the hallway and not Mitt Romney.
I was like,
yeah.
But Mike Pence did have to flee though, and they did. And they did slow down the certification of the election.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, I feel like it felt like it looked a lot like she was going up the bat for the insurrectionists. I feel like that makes her look bad, but she like was milquetoast about it. I feel like a lot of the far right people that follow her are going to see that and be like, why wasn't she willing to defend any of these things? Why did she keep pivoting away off of these things?
I doubt it. I think since she's in stark contrast to you, they're going to be more busy being angry at you than like angry at Lauren. But here's one thing that I did see, which you never like push back upon. When she said members of Black Lives Matter, I think you needed to be like very like, that's not a thing. What's a member of Black? Do you mean the ILC, like the Act Blue taking donation organization? Or are you telling me that somebody who works as staff for that thing was a member of that organization did it? Or are you saying somebody who falls under the umbrella term of the Black Lives Matter movement, which is an umbrella term? It's a broad brush. There is nobody who's a member of Black Lives Matter who are doing these things. Same thing how if somebody says a member of Antifa, that's not a thing.
That's true, but that would have been a bad way to argue, I think, because that would have given her an open to say, well, how are these the people that raided the Capitol?
You would have said, what about the people who were like somebody like Jeff Finley and others who were members of the Proud Boy organization, for example, right? Who has also been, in your nation of Canada is a terrorist organization.
Wait, when did I say I was Canadian? Because people in chat misunderstood that when I said, well, you're Canadian, I'm American. I'm pretty sure that's what I said.
Yeah, but did you ever bring up the fact that the Proud Boys are like, well, the thing is you could have pivoted to actually the member definition is important because when you look at the Proud Boys, they have members who engaged in violence. They have actual accountability they should have for their structure. A structure built on violence is a violent fight club. A structure that has made it so they have been designated a terrorist organization by the Canadian government. Your own country believes they're a terrorist organization. Your country would see it as terrorists storming the Capitol.
Lauren Sothern thinks that Canada's laws are like that they label anybody they disagree with as terrorists. She like brought up like I watched her debate with Destiny last night. She brought up like the C-16 thing in Canada and said that Canada is not as good as America because they don't have proper freedom of speech. She would have just brought up that she doesn't like Canada's government.
She would have said, so you would have asked, then you would have had to been like, so do you believe the like Proud Boys are okay or they're not a terror group? Like, what do you think of the Proud Boys? And then you could have shifted it to the organization, which was undoubtedly that actually had members engaging in violence. And so I guess the member distinction is a minor point, but yeah, I just always get angry. Someone says a member of Black Lives Matter, like you go to some fucking form, fill it out or something, and now I like Black people, love Black people.
I think she would have I feel like she would have had an easy out there and it wouldn't have supported my overall argument if I brought up if I tried to jump on the well, there's no members of BLM, it's just a movement, right? Like that would have I don't feel like that would have gotten her anywhere.
Fair enough. And what was the last one?
That was it. Censorship was the last one that we did.
Censorship, and yeah, I guess that's everything. I guess the patriotism and the midsection was probably the weakest, and the fact that she pivoted out of so many areas and there was not much you can do because she would just say it's not in the book. Basing it off of like the book makes it kind of like if you were able to like maybe choose like an article or something like that she wrote that has actual positions in it, so she would never have the ability to pivot, or it'd be more difficult for her to pivot. I guess it would have been better, but I don't think you would have been able to get her on otherwise, right? You wouldn't have been able to get her on by like bringing up an old article she wrote or something.
I feel like, yeah, that would have been good, but also something that I planned to do originally was to bring up some of her like controversies and the bad things that she's done, but that would have come off as like really bad and it would have made me look triggered. I think I like shook her up a bit a few times there, like where she started to get like loud and like maybe because you guys couldn't see her on the screen. If I knew how to, I would have put her on the screen where she like looked upset and came off as like a little bit triggered.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, I do think also showing them on screen is better generally for like the viewer's perspective to be able to see the person who you're talking to. I mean, you don't do it with just like a random caller, but if you have someone on who's like, if I had Jordan Peterson on, I know for sure I'd like have his face on screen.
Yeah, I think the main issue was because I don't know how to set up, or I didn't have the ability to set up like the camera. Like I would have put it like somewhere around here where my finger is. I would have put the camera up here and that would have been where her face was, but I would have had to have like Discord, like her camera on Discord on a specific part of the screen. And then whenever I like tabbed out to look at my document to look at which letters I want to go over, then I think her face would have disappeared. Maybe I could have done like a specific window capture. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but because from my perspective, she seemed like collected basically the whole time. And like, I mean, my chat's telling me this right now. So maybe if that was true, then obviously that, you know, from the audience perspective, obviously not from a, like whether the points were good perspective, from a viewer's perspective, yeah.
Okay. Next time I'll probably want to show whoever I'm debating's face because maybe from my perspective, I feel like I did better because I saw like the faces she was making and like I could see that associated with her. Some people in my chat are saying she got angry, but that is my chat. It's probably going to be biased. Yeah. But
Xander's chat is well known in the community for being a bunch of shrimps, a bunch of you know, dunderheads, I would refer to them as. Wouldn't you agree, Xander? Dunderheads, a lot of them.
Actually, I feel like most of them don't even like me. But you know, I'm just kidding.
Exactly, dunderheads.
Yeah, you are all done. I don't even know what a dunderhead is, but yeah, you are all dunderheads. It sounds like the name of a World of Warcraft Tauren clan, but yeah.
Dunderheads? You've never heard the famous Dylan Burns TV phrase, dunderhead?
No, I haven't.
That's a pretty dunderhead move, Xander.
Okay, I feel like I'm getting inside joked here.
No, well,
wait, is that a slur?
Oh no, slur. Is a slur for dunderheads?
I'm getting confused here. I'm Googling it.
What does?
I'm Googling that shit.
What does come up?
A stupid person. Okay, so it's just dumb.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you got me there. Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
So
who's the dunderhead now? Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, you got me there. Overall, I know that a lot of leftists are going to be really pissed at me, and they're going to be like, "You irresponsibly platformed Lauren Sothern."
I think that doesn't make sense here because she's so much more massive than you. Like when you think of like influence and like just general notoriety and like how well known, it's not like you put her face in front of new people and now new people know who Lauren Sothern is, right? That's not a thing that happened. There's probably a few section people getting angry at you with, but there's less risk because of just the size of her. If she was like maybe a lot smaller, maybe the argument could be made.
Yeah, but I've already seen on Twitter like people being like, Lauren Sothern destroyed Xanderhal. But to be fair, I think a lot of those people are the same people that like either don't like me or have been saying Xanderhal's going to do badly from the beginning.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's areas you can improve, obviously. I mean, at the beginning, like by the midway point, I was like, this is fucking over. He dumpstered it. But then you like, you kind of came back, and that's why you got the 5 out of 10, buddy.
Yeah, here I want to read over some feedback. I'm not going to name this person, but I'll read the messages and see like what you think of their criticism. Okay. So I generally like Xanderhal, but the Lauren Sothern quote debate has just been sad. It was just sad. She seemed reasonable. The only good part I watched was the trans kids debate. Even then, it felt lackluster. I hate comparing him to Vosh, but he would have handled it much better and much more responsibly. Demon Mama would have done better too.
I do think she came off as very reasonable. That is something that I think is true. She did. I didn't leave this conversation thinking she was like a nutter or something. And I think the main reason is because they're basing it off of a foundation that seems so unobjectable that you needed to like get her to say something off the wall during the conversation if you wanted to make her seem unreasonable. Because the things you were like bringing up were like equality good, censorship bad, community, like these things that were that just like almost unobjectionable on their face that you would have to like reach out, but whether it was sad, I wouldn't say it was sad. I would say it was frustrating at times.
Yeah. Do you think I should have hammered in on her talking about elites and asked her what that meant? Or do you think that would have been presumptuous?
Maybe you could have been like, when you say elites, can you be specific? What do you mean by that? You can say that without being like, you're talking about the Jews, aren't you? You can say it, like, because then someone could be like, the financial, like, banking, well, it's fuck, I immediately went to that. It could be like, the media or something like that, or they could say like a specific class. You could be talking about, okay, how much control do they have? And you can get to more specifics. Because when people say elites, I also like to ask for like, who are the elites? Like, can we be specific about what we mean by this? Because a lot of people in the head they'll just fill it within like Jews, and we all know why.
Okay, yeah, I knew I couldn't just do what do you mean by that? I didn't think that was a good idea. I felt like that would have been presumptuous and it would have gone anywhere. I guess the main issue is that
the Kaepernick thing was tough.
I feel like I did fairly all right there because she ended up leading into her doing like the apologia for the Capitol riot, I feel like.
Yeah, I guess the thing you should have, like when she said, for example, like the thing is she said actually Kaepernick might have had more influence because he didn't get banned. You could have been like, well, the thing is people care and paid more attention to it and had more direct results. And so, of course, like if the president breaks TOS or terms of service, it's going to get more attention and have harsher results than if some random celebrity does it. Because if the president breaks terms of service, literally the whole world is paying attention. And obviously we saw the results of that. Where when Kaepernick called for revolution, nobody like overthrew the government. When Trump asked for patriots that go to DC, people died.
That's good, yeah. That would have been a good way to go about it, that people, very particular people, would have been paying attention. Like when Trump did it, everybody saw it. But when Kaepernick did it, only those that were like interested in what he had to say probably saw it. That's actually a good way to go about it. I feel like I got her pretty good on TOS enforcement when it came to talking about the way that these platforms are run.
That was the one section that I thought you were doing really good, is like talking about the specifics of why YouTube does what it does when it comes to advertisement and how basically they are very scared about advertisers leaving. But then she brought up the thing with Shu, and I don't remember how you responded to that. Basically the idea with Shu that they basically stopped it so she couldn't get money from her like Hell or whatever series.
Hell World,
yeah, Hell World. But then they still put ads on her.
Yeah, and I brought up there's a channel that specifically digs into the algorithm and how to exploit it. I can't remember the name of the channel, but I watched it recently, and apparently it was like a glitch, and that was like a channel that's like the channel is about digging into the YouTube algorithm.
So did you say it was a glitch?
I think it's probably a glitch. It's a convenient.
You do realize how it's a convenient glitch, and people can be, it's a glitch. It's a glitch. Really?
Yeah,
Does it just happen to be the political alternative media? It's going to be good.
It looks bad, but if she pushed back on that, which she didn't even do, then I could have said, well, then what problem does that solve? What does demonetizing it solve if an advertiser finds out that their ad is being run?
Yeah, why would YouTube do it? You basically asked them, why would they do it then? Yeah.
And if they find out about that glitch, those advertisers, YouTube's fucked because now their system they set up to keep advertisers on the platform. Oh yeah, can I let Riley in a minute because she wants to talk too?
Yeah, I'm fine. We can talk together. I like Riley.
Yeah, Riley's poggers.
Poggers.
But it would be really
be sure
bad
not to hit. Don't hit on her though. I mean, you already did it with Lauren Sothern. Don't do Riley too, okay?
Fix your hair. What's my hair doing? What's wrong with it? I don't know. My hair's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if we went down that road, like, well, that's a pretty convenient glitch. Why'd that happen? Then I feel like we could have gone down then YouTube's gonna get fucked over when their advertisers find out that their system they set up to keep advertisers isn't working.
Yeah, but then that would also depend on her accepting the premise that the reason this is happening is to keep advertisers and not to like take out the little guy. They would have to accept that premise, which I do think. The thing is, I think that might work here because you specifically laid it out very, very well when it comes to like why exactly they do this.
Okay. Do you want me to bring in Riley now?
Yeah, sure. I can go use the bathroom in my chat and I can steal your content some more. I'll be right back.
All right. Oh wait, where is it? Oh, it's RGR. There we go. I'm at Dylan. It's Colin Riley. Oh, are you here?
Yeah. Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yep, I hear you. Sound good.
Nice. Chill. There's no like feedback or anything like that?
No, it sounds good.
Chill. Okay, so I'll try and keep it relatively brief. I largely agree with a lot of things that Dylan said. So I think it's just important here, right? Because this was basically as I was watching personally, and you can tell me if you agree with this or not. The thing that's frustrating about this debate in particular, or like this subject matter, is that this is essentially an area where you have someone who has like very clearly a history of very problematic views, or very like objectively like views which are patently objectionable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have a medium or like a thing that she's produced which has a lot of takes which in of themselves are on their face end up coming across as like super reasonable. And so the work that you have to do in order to basically make it so that you can actually have a debate on that subject matter is you have to have like an uphill battle of basically like teasing out her underlying beliefs, because it might not be like plainly clear to the audience, right? And so that ends up putting you like, and it's not like an impossible thing to do. And I think that's like, you know, where you're trying to get at with some of like getting at her underlying positions, but it just makes it really, really difficult because she's always able to fall back on the, oh, well, that's not explicitly what I said argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I don't know, this is why I'm always kind of like very conscientious with like the forums or like the specific things I debate people on. And I'm not saying that necessarily you should have not pursued this debate, right? Like, you know, if you want to and you think that you're able to do it, then completely go for it. But like, it's just kind of frustrating because like, if you're like, when you're in this kind of a situation, it's hard to tell how the audience is going to like walk away from it, even if you have like a lot of really good points, or even if you end up making like points which are correct. A neutral third party might end up walking away and not knowing who to believe or not. And like optically speaking, it's hard to tell who comes out on top. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that. I guess this is, so I don't think I could have until now. I feel like this does good for prepping a future debate with Lauren on a specific subject, which would be a lot better because then it's like, okay, we're now debating your position on this thing. Where here I had to start by teasing out her position on it and get her to the point where she was down to debate it. And then from there, I had to debate that. And I feel like her having that ability to be like, well, I didn't say that, even though I was able to successfully tease out her opinion on this thing. Having that out was the hardest thing to deal with in the debate. And I feel like for the most part, I was able to manage it well because I was able to get her caught up in talking about the topic. And where I feel like, I guess, imagining it as though because I used to be a fan of Lauren Sothern. I feel like if I saw this debate as a fan of Lauren Sothern, what I would come out thinking was, why didn't Lauren defend her position on this, this, and this? And why wasn't she willing to say she believes this, this, and this? Because that's one of the things that I feel like a lot of people on the left discount about people that used to be right wing, is it feels very disheartening for your side when the other side is willing to be completely open about what they believe unabashedly, but the other side keeps on squirming away from what they actually agree with.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I get that. I think that to people who care more about those underlying beliefs, then that's probably something that they'll walk away with an impression that you did better on. I guess that as far as like just making sure, because here, I think of this very similarly. I'll talk about some of my experience with like trial advocacy and law school and debate and all that. So here, the problem is like just not having questions that are tight enough to get the responses that you want, right? Because when you ask questions, ideally you're trying to get at like a very specific response. You don't want to ask questions a lot where you're just kind of like fishing, or you're just kind of like meandering out in the open and giving them a lot of opportunity. Ideally, you want to try and maximize your time and your ability to look good, and you want to minimize theirs. And the way that you do that is by having like very tight questions that you ask, right? The way that you have really tight questions is by always being able to cite back to something, usually a quote of theirs that you can tie them to, right? Like, so for example, with Lauren, if she says, like, if you ask her, do you believe X? And she says, no, I don't believe X. Then you should be able to say, oh, well, at this place, you say, and then you read out the quote, and the quote says X, right? Or something very close to it, something the audience would reasonably interpret. And so it's just like here, I guess that like the whole point is just like, it's just a problem with the medium where it's like, you say, you believe X, and she says, no, I don't believe X, or no, I'm not arguing for X. And then you point to the page and it doesn't say X, but it says like X plus Y, or it says Y, or something like really close, but not exactly, It's not like a nail in the coffin. It's like almost, but it ends up just not coming across as cleanly. So I think that like in the future, so like you talked about prepping for a future debate, like something that could be very useful is like getting very specific quotes that she has, or like having specific citations to like a paper that you can be able to cite to, where it's like, she says, oh, this phenomena isn't happening. And you can be like, oh, well, I can cite to this thing, which says that it is. And then she's not able to do anything. Or, oh, and this is a super small thing. You were talking about a study halfway through. It was like a trans-related study. So this would have been a nice area just to be able to pull out a quotation, because the study you were talking about, it was the Sweden study. So I think that you might have talked about a different study, like the Lisa Littman study. But the study that you're talking about, the Sweden study, still was wrong. But it was wrong because there's actually a cool quote from the author of the study who talked about how people have gone out and misinterpreted her results, right? So like that could be a really cool example where it's like, if you happen to know that this would come up, then you could be like, well, hey, you're saying that this is something that the study says. I actually have a quote from the author saying to the contrary, and then you can nail her to the coffin, right? But it's just kind of like an issue of like not having something that you can nail her on going in, and like not having like super strict parameters for what you're talking about.
This must be an error with the document then, because I found the exact study. It's at the very bottom. Studies to watch out for. It was the same study that she was talking about, and she linked to me. And the things here is commonly cited by transphobes to indicate transness spreads socially. That exposure to trans material might encourage youth to be trans. Rapid onset gender dysphoria. That dated. The study polled parents, not the actual children, and those polls were taken online. And these sites were biased by nature.
Yeah, that's one. So that's the one that's cited by, like the one, Abigail Schreier, she cites to that study. A whole bunch of people cite to that study. They usually use that when talking about rapid onset gender dysphoria. Like that's where that study, like that's where that idea comes from, is that study. That's slightly different than what she was citing, which was a study about the benefits of gender affirming care, and specifically like gender affirming surgery, right? Which doesn't say what she says it says, right? And the author has come out and specifically like disclaimed that that's not what it means. But only because like so many people have gone out and misinterpreted it. Like those two studies are probably two of the most miscited studies on trans issues. And so like, and then on the other point, right? Like she brought up the idea that like, just because now that I have a study that you disagree with, now, now that there's a study that you disagree with, that means that it's not credible, right? And the right response is to say, no, it's not. It's not that it's not credible because I don't disagree with it. It's I've evaluated the totality of the evidence, and it happens to be that the only handful of studies that happen to disagree with the rest of the literature on the subject also happen to be severely flawed, and the authors have both come out and said that people misinterpret them, right? Like that's happened for both one really cool thing that you might want to look into. This is just like a cool little factoid, is that like so for the rapid onset gender dysphoria study, the person or one of the people who actually led that study actually ended up leading a follow-up study which went to the positive effects, or which shows the positive effects of gender affirming care on transgender youth. So it kind of shows that like that author ended up coming around to kind of be like, okay, clearly people are misinterpreting this, so let's go ahead and show people how positive it affects people, right? But like, that's why it's kind of frustrating when she can just kind of like pull up these things, and it's like, you know, if you're able to have like the right quotes to be able to nail her on, then you can make her look like an idiot. But it's just a matter of kind of like being able to always know like what to be able to cite to nail people. I don't want to like drone on too long. So I don't know, that was like my main thing. Otherwise, yeah. I don't know. I agree with a lot of what Dylan was saying.
Okay. Yeah. I think, it's weird because the study that you're referring to that she apparently cited wasn't the one that she cited. Like, they're both here. Hold on. Let me check to make sure. The one that she cited was she cited the NCBI one,
It's a Sweden study, right?
The suicide and suicidal behavior among transgender people. That it was okay. Weird.
Yeah.
I think it's because in the no, I see what it is. The problem is that in the studies to watch out for section of the document, the problems are switched around. The one below the one that claims that so the one debunking the study that she's cited is below the rapid onset gender dysphoria one, I think, in my document.
Yeah. And I mean, like, again, it's just kind of hard because like, I know that you were making the right criticism. Like, you had the right instinct that like the study is like the way that she was representing it was BS, because like that is the right instinct. Like it was like the way that she was.
It's always like 2 or 3 of the same studies that have all been debunked. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure it's like those main two. There's technically, so it's like those 2 studies and then like a couple other studies about the nature of how trans youth, like how likely they are to grow out of their feelings of being trans. Those studies, they were all conducted like back in the early 2000s, and a lot of people have come out since then and have talked about how those didn't have like really good measurements because the people who ended up conducting those studies conflated a lot of categories of children. Like, it didn't make any distinction between like gender non-conforming children that just didn't happen to act like conventional boys or girls, and then children who like consistently and were diagnosed with things like gender dysphoria or ended up being put on puberty blockers or things like that, right? So like those are like the main 3 categories of studies that like if you misinterpret them can lead you into like kind of anti-trans positions, but like as long as you know how to be able to debunk them, or like most of them, the authors have come out after the fact, or people have come out after the fact and like said that people have been misinterpreting them. So like those are just good things to have in your pocket for those kind of discussions.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I appreciate that.
Yeah, what she said.
Yeah, no problem. Anyway, all right. I'm gonna hop out. I didn't want to like take too much time. The main thing is just like, you know, always being able to like have tighter questions so that you can really nail people and not give them any wiggle room, because ultimately like you want to win. You want to go in here and you want to win, and you want to show them that they're dumb, because like the more you make them look reasonable, the more likelihood there is that people watching might walk away and think, that's a reasonable person. I might go check them out. And then you've led someone down the far right rabbit hole. And that's not good. And we should minimize that.
Okay, I think I, especially with the trans topic, I did a good job of making it very clear that she's not someone worth following to basically everyone watching, who's like, even if they're in the middle of the road or they're like more left leaning, if they're part of my audience, they probably saw this and were like, and they didn't know who Lauren Sothern is, they probably came out of it like, okay, yeah, she's not somebody that I want to follow. I guess from the perspective of like leftists that are looking at it very critically, I probably did like subpar. And then from the perspective of at least when I try to look at it how I would have looked at this debate back in the day, I would have been disappointed that Lauren seems so weaselly and unwilling to defend her positions. That's, I guess, how I would look at it.
Yeah. Let me also just caveat this by saying that like I'm super duper critical with debate. Like I'm literally like I just was coaching recently. Like I don't know, I coach college debate. Like I'm always like incredibly critical with people because I'd rather spend more time telling people how they can improve than just like hug boxing them. Like, you know, you do this for a living. You're good at what you do. Like you don't need me to tell you that. So yeah, like, you know, this is all like just criticism just so that you can be able to improve. It's not trying to be like, I don't know, whatever. Like I don't really care about like, you know, you know that you're good at this. So it's just like, you know, I want us to be able to improve so that like, if we do make mistakes, we can just learn from them and move on and all that good shit.
Yeah, I think so. The thing with debating is nobody is born being good at debating. You have to practice at it a lot. And this actually leads me into what I talked about on stream 2 days ago. And well, I used to be a Lauren Sothern fan, Schmilf. I talked about this before, but now that I have 1,500 people, or sorry, 1,158 people watching now, here's a better place to announce it than that other stream. Oh, and it's good that you're here, Dylan. As you all know, most of the time when I do debates, it's with random people that I set it up with that message me on Discord or Twitter, or it's somebody who pisses me off in chat. And Lonnie has been pressuring me to go on panel shows more. And I didn't used to like them because they used to be very, at least every panel show that I previously went on was like kind of circle jerky because it was all people that agree with each other. I want to go on more panel shows in the future and just do debates with as many people as I possibly can. I talked about this on stream the other day, but now that we have more people, the only way you get better at debating is practice. I'm certainly not, I'd say I'm okay at debating, is to practice. And I want to practice more. So Dylan, if there's any, like, not necessarily the hippy dippy royale thing, but like just random debate panels that you do, or any other panel viewers that are watching now, if you guys want to have me on one of those, hit me up because I'll be down for it.
What you doing next Friday?
This Friday or next Friday?
Next Friday. This Friday I already have it all scheduled. It's gonna have Trihex, Hutch, Lecture Fan. This Friday's gonna be great.
I love Trihex. I love Trihex so much. This next Friday, I'm free.
Okay. How about that?
Yeah, I'm down for it. What time do we do it?
8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
All right. Perfect timing for me.
Yeah, business stocks, man. Hippy dippy stock continues to rise.
Oh shit! What's Dogecoin at? Dogecoin was like at 18 cents last time.
I need to start Hippy Dippy Coin. I want to see if I can do that.
What the fuck?
What's it at?
Dogecoin's at. Oh yeah, Dogecoin is at like 26 cents. Is it?
Bitcoin's over $60,000. It's fucking insane.
No, it's at. Is it? Yeah, no. Dogecoin's at 26 cents.
By the way, Bitcoin, apparently all the energy that's used to produce Bitcoin has completely reversed all progress we've made with solar panels.
Wait, what?
all the energy it takes to produce Bitcoin is the equivalent to all the energy we've now produced with solar panels. So we've reversed basically everything.
Doesn't it have like no cap? It's dropping a fair amount. I don't know. Do you think I should sell now at $67 or hold?
What did they say during the GME? Hold the line. Hold.
I didn't buy any GME.
Hey,
I just bought.
Hey, you made money. Well, how much did you put in?
I put in like $40 into AMC and I made $20 on top of it.
I meant in Dogecoin.
Oh, I put $18 in and I'm at 66 right now.
Hey. Let it hold. Let's see what happens.
Let it hold.
Okay.
Let it hold.
Bitcoin right now is at 60K, and you know what? Look, I'm a financial expert, okay? I'm a 20-year-old with an ego. So I'm a financial expert. And if I've learned anything, is that markets always recover.
Okay. You know what? I'm just going to not look at it because who knows, one day when the Doge... people keep saying the Doge dog died. I don't think it did. When the dog from the Doge thing dies, that's going to be like, people are going to pump the shit out of it in the dog's honor, and I want to make sure that I'm still bought in when that happens.
True, that's not a bad idea. Doge dog died. Let me check.
People are saying Doge died. Some are saying Doge is still alive. Last I heard, the dog was like old and weak.
Popularity team peaked on April 2017. There was a report that the real dog has passed away.
Interesting.
Well, it looks like your whole financial system has collapsed.
Wait, people in chat are saying she's fine. It was Gabe the dog who... I know when Gabe died. That was a long time ago. 2017? No.
Currently, the Doge is a healthy 11-year-old dog living in Japan among our humans and forecasts. Well, the dog's death hoax was certainly insensitive. It managed to bring the internet together. Okay, so it was a hoax. So it's still alive.
Sasha Star says Wikipedia says the dog is 15 and alive.
Okay, well then you know what? That's prime death age, okay? Let's make some money off of some dead animals.
Hey, you know what? It feels wrong, but I'm not going to complain.
Hey man, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. Let's make some money.
Oh my god.
Yeah, hey, you're not. Hey, listen, fuck it. Fuck it, you know? Let's go. Hell yeah. Dogecoin to the moon.
To the moon.
To the moon. What is the
Riley tells me all the time how she has put every single dime that she owns into Bitcoin because she trusts in it.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely what I do because I know so much about stonks and Bitcoin. I am the Bitcoin knower.
Yeah.
As it was. No, I don't know shit.
I believe that women can't know just as much about economics as men, and that's why I believe in Riley. Because I'm a feminist.
Everyone in chat, just buy Dogecoin. It's better than actually no.
See, what Riley's saying is if you don't buy Bitcoin, then basically you don't believe in women's ability to look into economics. So that's up to you. That's up to you. Who's a new Secretary of Treasury? Think about it.
Dylan, I feel like you're ascribing a lot to my positions on this. That I may have,
do you deny it? Do you deny it? Well, she hasn't denied it. She hasn't denied it. That's a question. She believes it. Bitcoin.
All right. Anyway, I think I'm gonna head out. I gotta work on a paper. So I love y'all. I'll talk to you later. All right.
Yeah, I gotta go make money. Bye. Okay, that's enough of that.